Chapter 2361. Well, Tong Liang seemed to have wet the bed. Ning Shu thought about it and cut Tong Liang's finger. He dipped it in blood and wrote on the bedside table, "Your body is very good. I like it very much." At the end, Ning Shu even drew a smiling face to act cute. After doing this, Ning Shu left the room. You should also experience how it feels to be blasphemed. After dealing with Tong Liang, he would deal with Tong Prenghai. He didn't know if he could complete this mission. So, Ning Shu tapped his finger and water appeared in front of him. Ning Shu washed his hands and eyes. Damn, his eyes hurt. Fortunately, he didn't use his hands, but his mental strength. Otherwise, it would be even more disgusting. It was clearly a beautiful and sacred thing that would naturally come together when the conditions were right. Why did it become a filthy thing under the trampling of these people? Wasn't it good to have a pilgrimage heart? The next morning, there was another shrill cry of a male duck. Tong Liang looked at these words and felt extremely horrified. He didn't know if it was a male or female ghost. If it was a male ghost, it would be too disgusting. Tong Liang was disgusted and scared. Then, these words were slowly wet with water and finally wiped away. The blood disappeared as if everything was an illusion. But it wasn't an illusion. Nothing was an illusion. "Brother, what's wrong?" Tong Tong was awakened by her brother's shrill voice. "Is there a ghost again?" "There is a ghost. There is a ghost." Tong Liang pulled his hair. "He said that my body is very good. He likes me." This feeling was too terrifying. It was incomparably terrifying. "Tong Tong, what are you talking about?" "Brother, we have to go to school today." Tong Tong ignored her crazy brother and went to cook. If she asked too much, her brother would scold her again. Tong Liang rushed out of the house. Tong Tong hurriedly shouted, "Brother, where are you going, brother?" Ning Shu smiled. He was probably too scared and went to find his parents. Tong Tong couldn't help but scratch her head. "What is brother doing?" "Don't worry about him. Go to school after cooking. Knowledge changes fate. You have to try your best to learn more. With more knowledge, more power to change yourself. He would have the strength to save himself." Tong Tong nodded. When Tong Tong came back from school, the house was full of smoke. She almost thought that the house was on fire. She saw a lot of incense and candles burning in the house and a monk chanting scriptures. Tong Liang stood shivering beside Ding Chun. He didn't look arrogant at all. Tong Tong moved to Ding Chun's side and called out in confusion, "Go back to your room." Ding Chun didn't want to say anything to Tong Tong. Seeing how tired her mother was, Tong Tong obediently went into the room without saying anything. There is no ghost at home, but why do both mommy and big brother say there is a ghost? Tong Tong was confused. Only the human heart has ghosts. No matter how ferocious ghosts are, they are still transformed from humans. So there really is a ghost? Tong Tong asked in horror. "No, it's a psychological effect," Ning Shu said shamelessly. "But there's an angel like me." The monks outside were chanting sutras and knocking on the wooden fish. It was a torturous day. Tong Liang didn't dare to stay at home. He went to the hospital with Ding Chun, leaving Tong Tong alone at home with a floor full of ashes. "Clean the room." Ding Chun instructed Tong Tong and left with Tong Liang. "Tong Tong?" She was completely dumbfounded. However, Tong Tong obediently took a mop and cleaned the ashes on the floor of the living room. Then, she did her homework after dinner. Although she was the only one at home, Tong Tong was very relaxed. Then she started to cultivate. Until now, Tong Tong didn't feel any energy or spiritual energy. She didn't feel anything except that her appetite became better. Ning Shu just said, "Take it slow. Don't rush." In the middle of the night, Tong Tong fell asleep. Ning Shu floated out of the room and went to the hospital. Tong Liang was sleeping on a chair in the ward. Then he suddenly felt a huge force pressing on his body. Then he felt a pair of invisible hands groping his body. Tong Liang wanted to shout, but he couldn't. His father was sleeping soundly on the bed. His mother was lying beside the bed. No one could hear his voice. He had left home, so why was this ghost still following him? When the unbearable humiliation was about to end, he vaguely heard a man's sigh, which made Tong Liang feel as if he had been struck by lightning. His entire body was petrified. It was a male ghost. Why didn't the male ghost harass Tong Tong? Why did it harass a boy? It was too disgusting. It was really disgusting. Ning Shu glanced at Tong Penghai, who was sleeping on the bed. He was thinking about how to deal with Tong Penghai. Even if the tools were no longer there, he could still use other tools. Maybe it would be more twisted and perverted. After finishing his business, Ning Shu returned to the Tong family and stayed by Tong Tong's side. As soon as Ning Shu left, Tong Liang's tragic screams rang out, causing the entire hospital to be in an uproar. "Mom, there's a ghost. There's really a ghost." Tong Liang cried bitterly. He really broke down. Ding Chun was very tired. She didn't know what to say. The ritual was done. She chanted scriptures and chanted Buddhist scriptures. How could her son still say that there was a ghost? He said that a ghost touched him. However, there was no mark on his body. "It's true, Mom. He has been following me like a shadow. It's a sexy ghost." Tong Liang cried and shouted. There were patients, doctors, and nurses around them. Ding Chun comforted her son. She said that there was no ghost. The family had already done the ritual. Even if there was a ghost, there was nothing to be afraid of. Some patients started to complain. In the end, the nurses had no choice but to give Tong Liang some sedatives. Tong Penghai saw his son like this and asked Ding Chun what happened. Why did his son become like this? Ding Chun's face was cold. She said that she didn't know what happened. Her son said that there was a ghost at home and that it kept touching him. She looked for a master and a monk. Everything was done. Tong Penghai frowned. He said that his son was sick and asked Ding Chun to bring his son to see a doctor. Ding Chun had no choice. At dawn, she brought Tong Liang for a checkup. All kinds of tests were done. Tong Liang's body was healthy and there was nothing wrong with it. The doctor also prescribed some drugs to suppress the hallucinations. Tong Liang kept saying that there was a ghost, but no one believed him. Was it because he watched the right movies? That was why he attracted such a ghost. Tong Liang was forced to take these drugs. It seemed to be effective. At night, the ghost didn't come to find him. Then, Tong Liang felt that reality and illusion were blurry. It felt very real and very real. At that time, he was in a conscious state. He even heard the sound of a man sighing. Tong Penghai said to his son, "Even if there is a ghost, we have to destroy it. No one can bully our family. Even ghosts are afraid of evil people. We have to be evil people." Tong Liang didn't say anything. That ghost seemed to be quite powerful. Even the master and the monk couldn't deal with it. Was there any way to destroy it? Chapter 2362. The Tong family of 3 stayed in the hospital, which made Tong Tong's life at home very comfortable. She was alone at home and didn't have to worry about anyone doing anything to her. However, this comfort was built on shelter and food that could fill her stomach. Without these, it would be a great challenge to Tong Tong's survival. Before they had the ability to survive, children were very weak. In order to survive, no one knew what children would do. Perhaps they would be bullied, or they would walk on a path that was even darker. Ning Shu hoped that Tong Tong could live a normal life that a girl should have. He hoped that she could live a normal life with independence and dignity. He didn't want her to become some devil's plaything and live her life in fear. Tong Penghai was first scalded and then knocked down, so his entire area was swollen. It was inflamed and swollen, so he had to stay in the hospital every day. If the swelling was too serious and it was necrotic, they might have to remove it. It was swollen like a steamed bun. This time, he didn't know when his balls would stop hurting. Tong Liang should have gone to school, but he wasn't in the mood to study now. He was being harassed by a pervert, and it was so disgusting. Since it was a pervert, it should be harassing Tong Tong, not him. Tong Liang felt as if he had been forced to open the door to a new world. Whenever he thought of a male ghost drooling over him, Tong Liang felt so disgusted that he wanted to vomit. It was fine if it was a male ghost, but why would it not let a child like him go? Disgusting, too disgusting. Ding Chun wanted her son to go to school. He was going to be in his 3rd year of middle school. She wanted her son to go back to school and study hard and try to get into a key high school. If he went to university, It would be easier for him to have a job. However, Tong Liang wasn't willing to go. He would rather curl up and sleep in a hospital chair than go home and study. Ding Chun was so angry that she felt weak. Her son didn't listen to her, and her husband wasn't someone who cared about her. He was also a playboy. Ding Chun's heart was filled with indescribable depression and anger. She just wanted to scream and shout that she couldn't take it anymore. However, Ding Chun just silently swallowed it. Life was tough, and she had to endure it slowly. She just thought that she had a hard life to meet such a man. Her husband couldn't work now. He didn't have a salary or anything. The savings at home were decreasing bit by bit. Ding Chun was extremely anxious. It was as if her entire person was shrouded in pent-up anger. Ning Shu didn't let Tong Liang off the hook. Instead, he went to visit him the next day. He wasn't sure what time it would be. It could be day or night. Most of the time, he would wait until Tong Liang was asleep before going. Tong Pringhai was the one who was injured and hospitalized, but Tong Liang suddenly lost weight. He was so scared that he was about to become a skeleton. He couldn't take it anymore and told his father that he would kill that ghost. He wouldn't stop until he was dead. Toying with him like this was too disgusting. Tong Pringhai also wondered if his son was sick. During this period of time when his son was accompanying him, he did not encounter any ghosts. Instead, it was his son who kept screaming that there were ghosts, but no one encountered any supernatural incidents. Tong Pringhai comforted his son. If there really was an evil spirit, he would definitely kill it. Her son had been touched by a ghost, and her man's manly place had been injured. There was definitely a ghost. Even if there wasn't a ghost, someone had to be behind it. Tong Pringhai was someone who had been in society for a long time. He was used to seeing all kinds of people, men, women, villains, and gentlemen. He liked the adopted daughter at home because the child wasn't influenced by society. She was still clean and pure. The darkness yearned for the light, and the filth yearned for cleanliness. Tong Tong was a pure blank piece of paper. Tong Pringhai called home and asked Tong Tong to visit him. He said that he missed Tong Tong. If she was his biological daughter, it wouldn't matter. Even if she was his biological father, she would still avoid him. Tong Tong received a call from her adoptive father. Ning Shu asked, "What should I do?" "He's your father. It's normal for you to visit him when he's sick. Besides, you're in the hospital. You don't have to show too much resistance." Too much resistance would cause the opposite effect. It would make Tong Pringhai think that his daughter had the intention to rebel. It was more important to work hard to protect herself. Tong Tong replied with an "oh." She made some things and sent them to the hospital in a thermos. Letting a 9-year-old girl go to the hospital like this, he wasn't afraid of losing her. He was also careless. Even women could be abducted and sold, let alone such a young child. When Tong Tong arrived at the hospital, she first smiled sweetly at her adoptive father. When her adoptive father was about to hold her hand, she immediately opened the thermos to feed Tong Pringhai. Tong Pringhai was unhappy at first, but when Tong Tong brought the food over and fed it to his mouth, Tong Pringhai's displeasure disappeared. Ning Shu looked at them expressionlessly. At this time, Tong Pringhai still had such thoughts. His crotch was so swollen that it looked like 2 oranges had been stuffed into it. Perhaps he didn't think that anything would happen. He was happy to see his daughter. Tong Tong forced a smile as she fed her adoptive father. Tong Pringhai patted her but from time to time. He even pinched it gently, making Tong Tong's face turn green and white. She silently took the thermos to wash it. Tong Tong wiped her tears as she washed it. Ning Shu stood beside her. "There's nothing to cry about. Practice martial arts well. This isn't the most serious thing." Tong Tong washed her face with water. When she returned to the ward, she saw that Ding Chun had returned with Tong Liang. "Why you here?" Ding Chun glanced at Tong Pringhai as she spoke. "I'm bringing some food to Dad." "Mom, I'm going back." Tong Tong thought for a moment and said to Tong Pringhai, "Dad, take care of yourself. Leave the hospital early so that Mom can rest more." Ding Chun didn't say anything, but Tong Pringhai said, "Then, Tong Tong, come to the hospital after school to take care of Dad. That way Mom can rest more." Ding Chun pulled the blanket over Tong Pringhai. "The whole family is here. Where do you sleep?" The child has to study tomorrow and doesn't do his homework. Isn't it enough for me to stay here? Okay, I'll listen to Mom. Tong Tong immediately smiled and said, Tong Tong will study hard and filial piety to Mom when I earn money in the future. Ding Chun waved her hand to let Tong Tong leave. As for filial piety, Ding Chun didn't seem to care. Perhaps she knew that this adopted daughter wouldn't have the chance to be filial to her. Tong Tong carried the thermos out of the hospital and asked Ning Shu, Angel, was what I said just now right? Yes, it was just a few words of praise. You didn't lose anything by saying them, Ning Shu said. Even if Ding Chun turned a blind eye to all this, Tong Tong needed someone to protect her. /BK. Chapter 2365. Mom, believe me. Someone really pulled me. Ding Chun sighed. Could it be that their family was being haunted by ghosts? First, her husband had a problem. Then, her son said that he was touched by a ghost. Now, her adopted daughter was pulled down from the parallel bars and landed on her legs. If her head landed on the ground, her neck would not be able to support it and she would definitely die. Now, she was the only one in the family who had not suffered misfortune. She did not know when it would be her turn. Ding Chun's heart was very scared. She felt a gloomy chill on her neck as if a steel knife was hanging over her neck. She suddenly shivered and had goosebumps all over her body. Why did this happen? Ding Chun sent Tong Tong home and looked around the whole house. She felt that the house was gloomy and felt that there was really a ghost inside. You stay at home. Ding Chun hurried to the hospital. Tong Prenghai, who had undergone surgery, should have woken up. After Ding Chun left, Tong Tong immediately asked Ning Shu, Is there really a ghost? I clearly felt that someone was pulling me. Ning Shu was very puzzled. He shook his head and said, There shouldn't be. Maybe it's just your illusion. During this period of recovery, you also have to practice the internal strength cultivation method. If it hurts too much, I'll talk to you. Ning Shu sat on the bed. No matter how painful it is, you have to bear with it. Tong Tong was sweating profusely. Ning Shu took a tissue to wipe her sweat. Tong Tong felt hungry, but her legs could not move at all. As for Tong Liang, she could not count on him at all. Ning Shu found some biscuits from home for her to eat. In the afternoon, Ding Chun came back again. Her eyes were red. She gritted her teeth as if she had a deep hatred. Behind her were several masters and monks. Ding Chun did not have much confidence in these masters and monks, so this time, she called a few more people. Ding Chun now really believed that there was a ghost in the family. Otherwise, the family would not have had problems one after another. Especially Tong Prenghai, who was lying on the hospital bed and could not move half of his body. Half of his body was paralyzed and he drooled when he spoke. Coupled with his obesity, he would probably stay in bed for the rest of his life. Ding Chun almost cried dry. She called these masters and said with gritted teeth, If we can destroy the ghost, money is not a problem. Now that he was about to lose his life, he did not care about money at all. These masters just walked around the house and really couldn't see anything. However, they knew a little bit about it. They said to Ding Chun, Your family has provoked a malicious spirit. Ordinary methods can't solve it at all. If you really can't, you have to move. Although I don't know what taboo you violated. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. Could it be that there were very few people who saw her? Probably not. If they really saw her, they would have jumped up and run away. Move! Ding Chun's expression did not look good. Even if we move, what if he still follows us? Our family can't take any more trouble. Can't we just destroy him? If we really can't, we can just ask him what he wants. If he wants to burn paper money or a house or a car, can't we burn it for him? The Grand Master shook his head, saying that there was no way to resolve this, that it was an ill-fated relationship. Ding Chun was very dispirited. After the master left, she clasped her hands together in the room and muttered as she walked, If we really offended you in any way, can you forgive us? Every New Year, I will burn incense for you. However, Ding Chun did not encounter any situation where a malicious spirit appeared. She had no choice but to think of a way to sell the house and move. Back then, she had bought the house with great difficulty and now she had to sell it. Anyway, this house could not be lived in. Then, the family would have some cash flow. With the money from selling the house, they could live for a while if they scrimped and saved. Now, the family was relying on her alone. During this period of time, Ding Chun had aged a lot. She looked very haggard. Her body was surrounded by the gloominess of a failed woman. She asked her son to pack his things and go to the hospital to take care of Tong Panghai. She wanted to go out and look for a house. After selling the house, the family would need a place to live. So, she could only rent a house. In order to save money, Ding Chun would definitely rent a smaller house. I told you that there was a ghost in the house. You didn't believe me. Now, something has happened. Tong Liang could not help but say. When he thought of his father becoming a cripple, Tong Liang was very annoyed. It was really embarrassing to have such a father. But he still had to go to the hospital to take care of his father. He had to endure the perverted ghost every day and take care of his half-paralyzed father. It was unbearable. What was going on? Ding Chun was very tired. Facing her impatient son and her husband lying in bed, she could not find anyone to rely on. No one cared about her. Tong Tong jumped to Ding Chun's side with a walking stick. She reached out and grabbed Ding Chun's hand. "Mom," Ding Chun glanced at Tong Tong and pushed her hand away. "Stay at home. The house is messy enough. Don't make trouble for me." Tong Tong immediately said, "I know, Mom. I will be good." Ding Chun carried her bag and went to sell the house. Ding Chun was reluctant to sell the house. She still wanted to wait for it to be demolished. But now that people were going to suffer, her life was more important. As for what kind of person bought the house, it was not within Ding Chun's consideration. If they did not have money, how could their family survive? Besides, the house could not be sold in a short time. They had to find a place to rent first. This house could not be lived in. Ding Chun ran around outside for 2 days and finally found a place to rent. The house was very small, only 50 or 60 square meters. The rooms were very crowded. There were not enough rooms. Except for the master bedroom, there was only one room left. There was not even a storage room. It meant that Tong Tong did not have a room to sleep. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. He thought that Ding Chun might want to lose Tong Tong. After all, her husband was useless now. It was not a big deal to lose Tong Tong. Tong Tong was very scared. But under the guidance of Ning Shu, she said to Ding Chun, "Mom, it's okay that the house is small. I can sleep in the living room. Dad is sick. I will help you clean, cook, and take care of Dad in the future. I will study hard in the future." Ding Chun just said that she could make a room in the living room with a partition. Tong Tong was very happy. After finding a house, they moved quickly. The previous house was slightly bigger and there were more things. Now that everything was stuffed into such a small house, it seemed even more cramped. There was a feeling that when they walked into the house, everything would be piled up to the ceiling. It felt suffocating and stuffy. Tong Tong's previous room was a storage room. Although it was small, at least there was a door. The room here was just a thin partition. It was a room that could only fit a bed. Ning Shu saw that Tong Tong was not dissatisfied, so he did not comfort her. /BK Chapter 2369. Back in the system space, there was a pure soul origin fluid on the table. Ning Shu poured all the soul origin fluid on the peerless martial art. It was all absorbed by the peerless martial art, but there were still so many cracks. It didn't seem to have decreased, or maybe it had decreased, but she couldn't tell. She really didn't know how much soul origin fluid was used on it. Even if it was repaired, it might be swallowed by the law of nothingness. Logically, she should stop this kind of unrequited effort, but emotionally, Ning Shu hoped that the peerless martial art would be fine. The peerless martial art carried a lot of her hopes. It was no longer just a simple world. Take it slow, there was still the 9 Palace Mountains soul stone mine. She then fed the pure soul origin fluid to the world of reincarnation. She seriously suspected that the world of reincarnation had grown leaves again. What a headache, she didn't know what this guy wanted to do. After all, she didn't have any experience and didn't know what to do. After feeding these 2 worlds, Ning Shu sat on the sofa and absorbed the soul origin fluid from this mission. She clearly had soul origin fluid and soul origin fluid, but she could only absorb the soul origin fluid from this mission. Eating the leftovers, Ning Shu had to shed tears of sympathy for herself. No matter what, she was always poor. The program setting made Ning Shu break down. After absorbing the soul origin fluid, Ning Shu touched her own soul. Doing this kind of mission was actually a little harmful to her soul. After all, she was a ghost. Name, Ning Shu. Age, 27 level, Super Mission Taker Points card, 243, 10 million points for 1 point card. Soul value, 18 plus 2 life value, 16 wisdom, 18 plus 2 luck, 20 plus 2 charm, 13 plus 2 mental power, 21 plus 2 martial power, 19 plus 2 aptitude, 19 plus 2 faith, 18,231 plus 12030 merit, 246,169 plus 30,000 soul strength, 86 plus 4 authorization ticket, none pure heart, none comprehended law, water law incarnation, wood law incarnation, constructed world, suspected to be the world of reincarnation items, calm halo, heart calming pill, faith halo, amulet 4, upgraded amulet plus 2 honorary titles, goddess of war, selfless ancestor skills, 5th ring shooting technique, intermediate fighting technique, intermediate level poison technique, beginner level business management knowledge, beginner level code programming, beginner level lawyer skill, sage ghost catching skill, beginner level cooking skill, intermediate level embroidery skill, trash hypnosis. Aura, mother of the world, queen's blessing, sister model worker, Qinshi's blessing, leader aura, grass blessing, best friend of a lifetime, Miao Miao's blessing, healer of the dying, Zhu Su Nyang's blessing, founding woman, Chen Ermiai's blessing, lawful lady, Chen Ning's blessing, bane of the blood clan, Jasmine's blessing, transcending race communication, Bai San Yang's blessing, brave heart, Wang Ying's blessing, bloodthirsty tyrant, and Ai Bingyan's blessing. Fulfill Tong Tong's wish, don't be violated by your family. Mission completion rate, 100%. Mission rewards, 16 merit cards, 16 attribute points, 80% soul power, 90-12 faith power, including previous world's accumulation, 40% soul power, 40% soul power, 40% soul origin. Ning Shu thought that the mission completion rate was not high, and that his soul power would not be enough. He did not expect to get 80%, which was not a small amount. The main system took 10%, 2,333 took 10%, and the rest was hers. It was not bad. Name, Ning Shu. Age, 27 level, Super Mission Taker Merit Cards, 243 plus 16, 10 million for 1 merit card. Soul Power, 20 plus 2 health points, 16 plus 2 wisdom, 20 plus 2 luck, 22 plus 2 charm, 15 plus 2 spiritual power, 23 plus 2 martial power, 21 plus 2 aptitude, 21 plus 2 faith power, 30,261 plus 9,012 plus 6,000,000 merit, 276,199 soul power, 90 plus 5 authorization ticket, none pure heart, none law comprehended, water law incarnation, wood law incarnation, constructed world, suspected to be the reincarnation world items, calm aura, calming pill, faith aura, amulet 4, upgraded amulet plus 2 honorary titles, goddess of war, selfless ancestor skills, 5th ring shooting technique, intermediate fighting technique, intermediate level poison technique, beginner level business management knowledge, beginner level code programming, beginner level lawyer skill, sage ghost catching skill, beginner level cooking skill, intermediate level embroidery skill, trash hypnosis aura, mother of the world, queen's blessing, sister model worker, Chen Shi's blessing, leader aura, grass blessing, lifelong best friend, Miao Miao's blessing, life-saving hand, Zhu Su Nyang's blessing, founding woman, Chen Ermiai's blessing, beauty-in-law, Chen Ning's blessing, bane of the blood clan, Jasmine's blessing, transcending race communication, Bai San Yang's blessing, brave heart, Wang Ying's blessing, bloodthirsty tyrant, and Ai Bingyan's blessing. After randomly adding the attribute points, Ning Shu was in a dilemma between going to the Space City or the Nine Palace Mountain. In the end, he chose the Nine Palace Mountain because there were still a lot of unexcavated mineral resources in the Nine Palace Mountain. Forgive her for only wanting to be a decadent rich woman. After opening the black hole, Ning Shu touched his chin and looked at the black hole. When would the passage of the world of samsara be as magnificent as that of His Excellency? The thick black door with carved flowers seemed to have black vines hanging down from the side of the door. It was mysterious and elegant, unlike her. It was just a black entrance, which was very unstylish. Forget it, it was good enough to have a black hole. It was just an entrance. When he had the ability, he might carve it when he had time. Walking into the black hole, Ning Shu first walked back and forth in the world of samsara. He visited every corner of this world, but there was still no sign of condensing the reincarnation pool. There were no abnormalities at all. Ning Shu sighed. When would this world be able to form the world of samsara? Could it be that it was unable to form the world of samsara and was developing in a strange direction? Ning Shu entered another world. This world was the world where the main world had sprouted. It was exactly the same as the main world. Black sand, no sound of wind, incomparably quiet, deathly stillness. Ning Shu drew out a strand of his soul origin and integrated it into the world of samsara, strengthening the connection with the world of samsara. One strand wasn't enough. Ning Shu made a few more strands and integrated them into the world. Only then could he feel the world of samsara. In Ning Shu's consciousness, the world of samsara was like a black seed that had sprouted. The seed was also black. In any case, it was black. Right now, there were only 2 leaves. However, in the future, it would grow branches and even more branches and leaves. Ning Shu held his head and knelt down. He couldn't imagine how much energy would be required. Right now, it was just a small sprout and it already consumed so much soul energy. In that case, if it wanted to grow into a towering tree, Ning Shu only wanted to kneel down. He really couldn't do it. Hollow out the Nine Palace Mountain? Ning Shu was like a poor mother with many children at home. He didn't know what to do with them. He couldn't throw them away. He had to raise them well. Otherwise, if they were to die, all his efforts would be wasted. This was full of uncertainty, despair, helplessness, pitifulness. Chapter 2370. Ning Shu appeared on the first level of Nine Palace Mountain and went to see Pai Lupi first. He received a pile of good quality soul stones. These soul stones did not contain soul origin, only soul power, which was not bad. These soul stones felt like they had fallen from the sky. After all, he only gave a little vitality liquid and did not care about the rest. He still had soul stones, which were not bad. She guessed that second young Master Li's soul had absorbed a lot of soul power from the soul stones. His soul seemed to be much stronger than hers. Perhaps the next time she came, second young Master Li's soul would be much stronger than hers. However, Ning Shu still said, "Take it easy when absorbing the soul stones. The soul stones are not pure." Second young master just nodded and did not say anything. Ning Shu also persuaded him. Pai Lupi could do whatever he wanted. She could not purify the soul power, so she did not want to stop Pai Lupi. Ning Shu did not know if there would be any side effects in the end. Anyway, he did not dare to absorb the soul stones directly. After all, he was going to such a plane and see all kinds of things. Some were beautiful, some were ugly. These things would more or less affect his soul. If he absorbed impure soul stones, it would cause all the negative things in his soul to come out. After taking the soul stones, Ning Shu was about to leave. Pai Lupi called out to Ning Shu. Ning Shu looked back at him. "What's the matter? Can you give me some more emerald water?" Second young Master Li rubbed his nose and asked. Perhaps it was because he was much stronger now, but when he faced Ning Shu, he was much more confident. Because the heavenly and earthly treasures are being fought over, and now the water is not enough. Not enough. Ning Shu was a little surprised. How can that be? You should know that a drop of water can turn a seedling into a towering tree. It's pure vitality. How can such a big tank be used up so quickly? Although she had completed 2 missions and seemed to have taken a long time in Nine Palace Mountain was much slower than outside. Therefore, Ning Shu gave her the liquid not long ago. You want to collect more of these things? You think too much. If this vitality liquid is left for too long, the vitality will either dissipate or be absorbed by other things, Ning Shu said calmly. Although there was the law of wood, the vitality was produced by the law of wood. Although he had absorbed a lot of energy from killing insects, it might run out at any time. Ning Shu couldn't be so pretentious. Pai Lupi touched his nose. I really don't have much. When you have time, give me some more. He meant not to ask, she did not want it now. Ning Shu nodded and turned to fly away. Young master. Li Si looked at his master staring at the back of that great ant. It was very creepy. That great ant is not to be trifled with. Although she usually did not do anything if she was provoked, those bodies that had been sucked dry were a lesson to be learned. I don't want to deal with her. I just feel that this girl is very strange. Pai Lupi said irritably, his expression was a little gloomy. Soul stones are good things but also not good things. After absorbing too much, I feel like I can't control my emotions. I want to absorb, but I also don't want to. It's so annoying to not have a physical body. There is no precedent of a soul body going to the second level of the world. I really don't want to be in this world, Pai Lupi said. What is the end of the universe like? Young master, why are you so sad? Li Si looked at his master, dumbfounded. Young master, what's wrong? Nothing. Ning Shu arrived at the mine and walked in. She heard the golden earthworm say excitedly to her, Doll woke up. She opened her eyes and looked at me once before falling asleep again. Ning Shu was expressionless. So, Doll must have remembered my face and will look like me in the future. The golden earthworm twisted its body. Ning Shu was speechless. She just did not understand why the golden earthworm thought that Doll would look like an earthworm. She had to crush her own body and then knead it like flour to grow like that. What exactly was supporting the golden earthworm to think that Doll would look like it? It was simply too confident. Ning Shu was too lazy to say anything. Ning Shu took out a spirit liquid bottle and poured some spirit liquid around the golden threadgrass. Then, she dripped some vitality liquid. The golden earthworm was still immersed in excitement and could not extricate itself. That crazy look made her speechless. No matter how she attacked it, it was useless. Perhaps the earthworm had always been guarding the golden threadgrass and would give birth to a golden earthworm. But now, it was obviously in human form and was going to grow into a two-legged monster that the earthworm hated the most. How blind could it be to ignore such a fact? Ning Shu looked at the earthworm with pity as if he was looking at an idiot. Pitiful. Ning Shu shook her head and glanced at the baby in the bud. Its entire body was golden, as if it was cast from gold. It was vivid and lifelike. It was so small and had all the organs, and its facial features were carved beautifully. It must have been hard on the golden threadgrass. With these facial features, when it grew up, it would probably be a handsome guy. Of course, it could also be a beauty. Who knew when it would grow up? The sole source of this mine was all given to the golden threadgrass. Ning Shu did not take a single drop. These high and mighty creatures were really fucking hard to serve. They would eat whatever was precious. What did you see in that place last time? Was it just lightning flashing all over its body? Ning Shu was very, very curious about what it was that the land of lightning punishment had struck. The golden earthworm's body stiffened, as if a shadow in its heart had been evoked. Can you stop talking? I want to know. I don't know. It was too big. How could I know what it was? I only saw lightning everywhere, and its body was also covered in lightning. I know that you two-legged monsters like to enslave these creatures the most. It's like raising pets. But when this thing comes out, it'll definitely destroy a city. This kind of creature that was born and nurtured by the heavens and earth is much nobler than the two-legged monsters. The two-legged monsters claim to be the noblest creatures in the world, yet they still want to enslave other creatures. Disgusting. Ning Shu only spread out his hands and said, if you're really powerful and think you're awesome, you can enslave humans too. Bah! If a living creature really enslaved the two-legged monsters, the two-legged monsters would immediately use the banner of justice to destroy evil spirits. It's only natural for the two-legged monsters to enslave other living creatures. The golden earthworm spat to express its disdain. Ning Shu said, "You know quite a lot about humans. You must have been enslaved by humans for many years. You're gloating, aren't you? You really didn't see anything?" "I already said I didn't see anything. Don't ask me to go again. Last time, I ran quickly, but this time, I'm not sure. I ran in without warning, and that big guy didn't notice. If I go again, it'll definitely be ready to catch me." The golden earthworm quickly shook its head. Chapter 2371. That's true. Sometimes people are bored and can play with ants for half a day. If you go, you'll just be walking into a trap. If the little earthworm went and was caught by that creature, it would definitely be electrocuted to death. Ning Shu no longer persisted in asking what kind of creature it was. Perhaps it would come out at any time. He just didn't know when it would come out. It felt like this land of lightning penalty had existed for a very long time. He didn't know when that creature would break out of its shell. If it could even deal with heavenly tribulation, it would definitely be awesome. Some people were born at the finish line. Others couldn't flatter them. A good birth was really important. This kind of creature was most likely a bug-like existence. Haven't you seen heavenly tribulation striking it day and night and still not killing it? Ning Shu wanted to go to the sea to mine. He originally wanted to ask the earthworm to go with him. However, when he thought of the earthworm's terrified look when it saw water, he gave up. It was useless for the earthworm to go. Besides, there was still the golden thread grass to take care of in the cave. The earthworm's strength wasn't weak. Ordinary people could definitely deal with it. There was also a poison that could corrupt the soul and turn people into fools. Ning Shu went to the seaside and walked into the sea. He drilled into the cave and started digging for soul stones. Ning Shu didn't dare to dig up all of these soul stones. If he did, there might be no more soul origin fluid. What was precious was this soul origin fluid. Some soul origin fluid had accumulated in the pool. Ning Shu quickly scooped it up and put it away. With more soul origin fluid, there might be fewer cracks in his peerless martial arts. Ning Shu thought for a moment, then pinched her fingers together to form a yin-gathering array around the huge mineral deposit. The function of this array was to gather the surrounding yin qi. If there were souls, they would also be absorbed. This way, the mineral deposit would be able to absorb more souls and form a soul stone mine. After digging for a while, a lot of golden soul stones were dug up. Ning Shu stopped digging and piled up the pool to prevent the soul origin fluid from flowing everywhere. Then he placed a golden bucket in the pool and let the soul origin fluid drip into the golden bucket. After doing all this, Ning Shu went out of the mine and added a barrier to it. After all, it was at the bottom of the sea and the water pressure was too great. It would cause a lot of damage to the barrier, so it had to be thickened. After coming out of the sea, Ning Shu wanted to try and see if he could enter the second layer. He had yet to comprehend the laws of space, so he decided to give it a try. If something went wrong, he would quickly retreat. Ning Shu arrived at the passageway, paid the toll, and entered the passageway. Wind howled as a spatial blade flew past his ears. His hair was cut off and the space beneath his feet began to collapse, turning into pieces of spatial fragments. Ning Shu was speechless. It collapsed to the side of Ning Shu's feet. Ning Shu ran out of the passageway, rubbing his nose awkwardly and walking away with his head held high and chest puffed out. "I'll come back next time." From the looks of it, one would not be able to pass through this passageway without mastering the laws of space. Barely after walking for a short while, they had already encountered all kinds of problems. If they were to force their way through, they would only end up dead. It was better to go back and comprehend the laws of space and wait until he had completely grasped them. Ning Shu smacked his lips and looked at the passageway with some regret. He really wanted to enter the second layer. After mastering the laws of space, he could enter the second layer, the third layer, the fourth layer. Everything was difficult at the beginning. As long as he mastered the laws of space, everything would be easy. In the future, he could do whatever he wanted on the ninth layer. Ning Shu returned to the system space. First, he went to Water City to reinforce the barrier, then to Wood City. It was not easy to obtain the laws of wood, but in the end, there was no tax for 100 years. He was so tired and weak that he did not want to move. After reinforcing the barriers of the two cities, Ning Shu went to the restaurant to get something to eat. He was under a lot of pressure. He had to eat something to calm himself down. The restaurant he chose was Shu Bai's restaurant in Water City. In any case, Shu Bai was someone he knew and would take care of business. Besides, eating did not cost much. In terms of scamming money, it was Si Tian who scammed him. He always forced all kinds of things and props, but he did not get what he really wanted. Ning Shu ordered some home-cooked dishes and exquisite desserts. The waiter gave him an extra set of desserts, saying that it was from the boss. Ning Shu looked up and saw Shu Bai upstairs. Shu Bai smiled at Ning Shu. Every time he saw Shu Bai, she looked calm and serene. Her Cheongsam was like an orchid in an empty valley. She was neither fast nor slow, elegant and moving. Compared to Shu Bai's leisurely appearance, Ning Shu felt that he was very busy every day. He was immortal and had an endless lifespan, but he was very busy. Shu Bai's slender fingers held a round fan with exquisite patterns embroidered on it. She slowly came downstairs. Every movement was a beautiful retro picture. Ning Shu felt that Shu Bai's days were not bad. Shu Bai sat opposite Ning Shu and poured tea for Ning Shu. She said, "I heard that the city lord has become the embodiment of the laws of wood again. Congratulations, the taxes have increased again." Ning Shu immediately felt as if a knife was stabbing his heart. This was not a pleasant topic. Although there was another city of laws, he didn't have a single cent. He still had to manage another city. Congratulations, congratulations. Your restaurant's business is not bad. You seem to be living well every day. The pace of life was slow and elegant. City Lord is making fun of Shu Bai. Shu Bai's life will be like this. There is no chance for me to start over. Without reincarnation, I won't be able to grow. I will be like this forever. There is no future to speak of. Shu Bai gently fanned herself and said. Ning Shu drank a mouthful of tea. Anyway, there were gains and losses. If you couldn't figure it out and wanted to die, there would be no reincarnation. You would completely disappear. Because he didn't have the ability to give himself a chance to reincarnate, Ning Shu thought about it again. If he was bored one day and succeeded in constructing his world of reincarnation, he would also go there to play. In life, there were all kinds of sufferings and blessings. There were ups and downs and all kinds of struggles. Do you regret it? Ning Shu asked. He separated himself from the system and didn't do missions anymore. He opened a restaurant to pass his days. There was no point in continuing like this. So what if I regret it? So what if I don't regret it? I didn't regret it when I made the decision, so I won't regret it now. I broke down and cried a few times. I couldn't stand this kind of feeling. The people and things around me are always changing quickly. Shu Bai said honestly. Maybe I couldn't stand this kind of survival mode. Even when I became a super mission enforcer, it still didn't make my life any better. So I chose to give up. Ning Shu nodded. When you were just familiar with a world, you would be forced to enter another world and have to face an even more new environment, people, and things. Some people were very slow to accept unfamiliar things and even resisted it. Shu Bai should be the kind of person who would read a book until late at night. She was lonely and enjoyed loneliness. Shu Bai's leisurely and elegant temperament was unmatched. Chapter 2372. Everyone had their own choices. Ning Shu didn't have much to say. Her choice was to become stronger. No one could control her. She didn't care about her life and enjoyed the loneliness of being at the top. Thank you for the dessert. Ning Shu ate a piece. It tasted good. Shu Bai waved her fan and silently watched Ning Shu eat. Ning Shu was speechless. Why are you looking at me like that? Ning Shu put down his chopsticks, wiped his hands with a handkerchief, and said to Shu Bai, "Just say what you want to say." "It's nothing. I'm just looking at the city lord. I'll remember how the city lord looks now. When the city lord becomes stronger in the future, I'll see what's the difference between the city lord now and the city lord now." Shu Bai smiled without showing her teeth. Ning Shu was speechless. "What do you see then? The current city lord is much more confident than the first time I saw you. You're also much more mature and calm. At that time, you were like a little white rabbit that suddenly barged in, Shu Bai said bluntly. Ning Shu was speechless. Thank you for describing me as a little white rabbit. It meant that she was innocent and cute. After experiencing so much, she naturally became calmer. She even participated in the war and survived. Ning Shu felt that there was nothing that she couldn't endure. Being able to survive in the face of monsters that blotted out the sky and covered the earth was also not bad. Was there anything more dangerous and terrifying than war? She had already cried, so why would she be afraid of tears? Shu Bai took out a piece of paper and passed it to Ning Shu. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows and took a look. There was a number of merit points on it. Shu Bai, this is all. Super mission enforcers are really nothing in the organization. After all, they are just ants. Shu Bai smiled and looked at Ning Shu. Ning Shu narrowed his eyes. This was the first time he had received an extra tribute. Accepting it meant that she wanted to protect Shu Bai. To be honest, Ning Shu was quite happy. This situation meant that someone recognized his strength. Ning Shu put down the paper. I'm afraid that you are friends with other people. Won't your friends be unhappy if you do this? What peaceful years. Right now, Shu Bai's life was peaceful. She had to pay a price to protect the orchid in the empty valley. Shu Bai was probably supporting other experts. Otherwise, how could she control the situation? City Lord, just accept it. Take it as a sign of good karma, Shu Bai said. Ning Shu nodded and accepted it. Only with his own strength would he be able to protect his own life. There shouldn't be anyone causing trouble in Water City. Don't worry, Ning Shu said. In that case, Shu Bai thanks City Lord, Shu Bai said with a smile. Ning Shu tilted his head and looked at Shu Bai. He thought to himself, I'm offering up resources with both hands and seeking protection from others. Even if she dies, she has to grit her teeth and persevere. I'm still the most reliable person who can protect myself. It was not bad to come here for a meal and unexpectedly earn a fortune. Ning Shu didn't hesitate to accept them. In Water City, she naturally had to protect the merchants here. No taxes, no resentment for 100 years. After eating and paying the bill, Ning Shu went to the spatial city to comprehend the spatial laws. As long as he could comprehend it, he could embrace the 9-palace mountain. Forget about the 9th level. There must be a lot of resources in the lower 8 levels. Just thinking about it made him a little excited. He calmly comprehended the laws. The more anxious he was, the harder it was to comprehend. He felt that the spatial laws were much harder to comprehend than the water laws. Perhaps it was because his sense of direction was not good or his spatial thinking was not good. When Ning Shu comprehended the spatial laws, he felt that it was very difficult. It was the kind of feeling that he couldn't make sense of. He couldn't enter the spatial law city for a long time. He couldn't buy anything. Ning Shu shuttled through various planes. He walked slowly and aimlessly. Although he wanted to comprehend something, his mind was blank. He couldn't comprehend anything. Perhaps there would be a flash of inspiration, but he didn't know when it would appear. It might take a long time. It might be tomorrow or the next second. Who could say for sure? Time and space were indeed high-grade laws. After comprehending for such a long time, he didn't even understand a little bit. Sigh. Needless to say, the temporal laws were difficult to comprehend. In addition to the 5 elemental laws, there were other laws. For example, the supreme laws, the life laws, the destruction laws, and so on. There was no law city at all. He didn't know if it was because it didn't allow people to comprehend or because there was no way to condense a law city. Ning Shu felt that his imagination was getting worse and worse. He was imagining things for no reason. He could clearly comprehend the spatial laws, but it was related to the supreme laws. It's over, it's over. The hole in his brain couldn't be too big. Ning Shu was too lazy to walk. He sat in the space and looked at the white space. He was the only one in this space. At least let people comprehend something a little. Ning Shu was about to be hit hard. He felt that the spatial laws were as difficult as hell mode from the beginning. It was difficult. He admired those who could comprehend the spatial and temporal laws. How did the Cheongsam man comprehend the temporal laws? Ning Shu propped up his chin, bored. Then 2333 called him back to do the mission. Ning Shu was annoyed. Why do I have to do the mission again? She didn't have long to wander around, but she had to do the mission again. She just chatted with Pai Lupi for a while, chatted with the golden earthworm for a while, dug a mine, had a meal, and comprehended the spatial laws. The system's time was at the speed of light, right? How did it pass so quickly? Back in the system's space, 2333 said, "You've been wandering around for a long time. The time in Nine Palace Mountain is too slow. So, according to the system's time, you've been wandering around for a long time. You have to at least increase the number of missions." The main system added missions again. Other than the mission takers who don't have the system, everyone is doing missions. Since the end of the war, you've only done 2 missions. Time was running out. Even 2333, who was in a daze, came back to his senses. Recently, 2333 had become more and more silent. She couldn't hear him speak for almost any mission. It was only when the mission ended that there was a notification, and then there was a suffocating silence. 2333, do the system's missions? Nope. Ning Shu sat on the sofa and bought some fasting pills and medicine from the exchange store. Then he clicked on the video. He wanted to see how Tong Tong lived her life. After all, she was a child that he raised. He tried to put the best cards in her hands. He just didn't know how she played. Ning Shu watched the video, touched his chin and frowned. Tong Tong's life was really hard. The older she got, the more work she had to do. Washing clothes and cooking. Fortunately, she could study. She coaxed Ding Chun to let her go to high school. In order to get into high school, Tong Tong knelt down, said good things, and made all kinds of promises. Ding Chun saw that her son was disappointing, but she didn't put all her eggs in one basket. She was an adopted daughter after all. The grace of raising her would make the rest of her life easier. Chapter 2373. Ding Chun agreed to let Tong Tong go to high school, but Tong Pinghai, who was paralyzed in bed, insisted on not letting Tong Tong go to high school. If she studied too much and grew wings, how could he control her? He argued with Ding Chun every day, saying that there was no point in studying so much and that it was better to work and earn more money. Tong Tong said that if she went to high school, her salary would definitely be higher than now. All these years, Tong Tong helped with the housework so that Ding Chun was not so tired. In the end, she sighed and let Tong Tong go to high school. She had a secret thought in her heart that when Tong Tong earned more money in the future, she could marry her son so that his son would have an easier life. Tong Tong almost worked her heart out to get into university. She worked part-time to study, so at least she had a better starting point than ordinary people. It was probably because of what happened when she was young that Tong Tong did not have a good impression of boys from puberty to university. Although she was pretty and had people chasing after her, Tong Tong really did not like any of them. She probably had not met anyone who could tolerate, understand, and care for her. It was not impossible to say that a man did not care and did not have a knot in his heart. Feelings were not a big deal. Now that Tong Tong had the strength to protect herself and survive independently, there was nothing that could threaten her. After Tong Tong started working, she would transfer a portion of the money to her adoptive mother. She had fulfilled her responsibility of raising her. Every time she transferred money, she would collect the receipt. Although the bank also had records of the transfer, it was not as direct as the receipt. Since Ding Chun intentionally or unintentionally asked Tong Tong to find a partner and come back to get married, Tong Tong sent more money home. She even suspected that Ding Chun wanted to trick her into marrying Tong Liang. Tong Liang was in his 30s. He did not have a proper job or a stable income. He was still living at home and had a bad temper. During festivals, Tong Tong bought a lot of gifts and mailed them back, saying that she was busy with work and could not go home. Tong Tong did not tell her family her specific location outside and the name of her company. She was afraid that her family would come to the company and make a scene. Ding Chun saw that her son was so old and there was no one around him who cared about him. She did not have a grandson yet, but she directly asked Tong Tong to come back and marry Tong Liang. Tong Tong said that they were legally siblings and could not get married. Moreover, she had already fulfilled her responsibility of supporting him. If it really did not work out, she would go to court. Ding Chun was so angry that she scolded Tong Tong for being ungrateful. She said that if it weren't for her, Tong Tong wouldn't have been able to go to high school and college. Tong Tong said that I was filial to you and sent you a lot of money every month. It was enough for you to live on. I had done a lot of work over the years. It cost a lot to hire a nanny to do the laundry and cook. Ning Shu watched with relish. Ning Shu felt more at ease. At least he wouldn't follow the crowd and be manipulated by others. He would marry whoever he wanted and wouldn't be threatened by the debt of gratitude for raising him. Although they couldn't get rid of this family, their influence would gradually decrease. However, did Tong Tong draw her on a piece of paper and paste it on the bedside to ward off evil spirits? She must have turned on a fan filter to make her look as beautiful as a fairy. It was definitely too photoshopped. Ning Shu looked in the mirror again. It wasn't that exaggerated. Although Ning Shu felt that she was pretty, it wasn't to this extent. Ning Shu lowered his head and looked at the red clothes. The red clothes were too impactful. The color was full and eye-catching, full of aggression, and also a little provocative. No wonder Shu Bai didn't call her a little white rabbit when she saw her. In other people's eyes, she looked like a little white rabbit. Was she that deceiving? He secretly saw Tong Tong's diary. She seemed to suspect that Ning Shu did something. However, she didn't pursue the matter. Maybe Tong Tong knew, but this kind of thing should be buried in her stomach. Ning Shu really wanted to ask Tong Tong to take down the picture on the bedside. It was inexplicably embarrassing. What if there were other mission takers in that world? Ning Shu liked to hide in the corner and observe secretly. He didn't like to be observed by others. After turning off the video, Ning Shu rubbed his face and said to 2333, "Go do the mission." 2333, "Do the system mission?" Ning Shu, "Didn't you already ask? Did you lose your memory?" 2333, "I'm asking again." Ning Shu, "No." "Oh." Ning Shu was sent to the mission world. Ning Shu was deeply worried for 2333. He was afraid that 2333 was mentally retarded. Ning Shu felt that he merged into a body smoothly. He let out a sigh of relief. Finally, it wasn't a child's mission. When he woke up, Ning Shu realized that he was like a blade of grass. Next to him were fragrant flowers. So, he was a blade of grass next to flowers? This setting was suffocating. After accepting the plot, Ning Shu couldn't help but shed tears. This was pretty much the most broken world Ning Shu had ever encountered. The client was a blade of grass in the heavenly realm's peony garden. It should have been removed, but because of a person's words, it remained until now. It absorbed the essence of the sun and the moon with the peony and formed a human form. This was pretty much a colorful Mary Sue story. All the men in the world loved me, and all the women in the world hated me. The peony formed a human form. It was so beautiful that it could only be found in heaven and earth. There were no words to describe the beauty of the peony. It was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Skin like cream, devastatingly beautiful. Omitting 10,000 words to describe beauty. What lotus fairy, flower fairy, and all kinds of musical instrument fairies couldn't compare to this peony fairy. As soon as she appeared, she dominated the crowd. Wherever she went, all the male gods looked at her. Their eyes were full of strange infatuation and amazement. When the female fairies saw the peony, their eyes were full of strange hatred and loathing. Most of them resented the peony for stealing the limelight. Even the male god they liked looked at the peony with infatuation. The peony gathered all the adoration and hatred. Even before peony took human form, there was an endless stream of people looking at her. This feeling was as if I had fallen in love with a woman. When she was still an egg, I had already fallen in love with her. Compared to the indescribably beautiful peony, the blade of grass that Ning Shu possessed was much more ordinary. Even if it turned into a human form, even if it was a fairy, it was still an existence that disappeared from the immortals. Compared to the peony fairy who turned into a human form, it was like heaven and earth. The plot simply made Ning Shu speechless. The plot was very simple. All the female fairies in the heavenly realm tortured the peony fairy one by one. However, she wasn't tortured at all. The male god was a hero who saved the beauty in time. The male god that the female fairies liked also hated the vicious female fairies. The female fairies were even angrier and hated the peony fairy even more. However, the peony fairy was still beautiful. The peony fairy was the object of love of all the male gods in the heavenly realm. She was an existence that all the female fairies wanted to kill. Ning Shu shed rainbow-colored tears. These people were so bored. Gods had a long lifespan. Weren't they tired of playing with these things every day? Chapter 2374. No matter where the peony fairy went, special effects would be added to her body. Petals would fall, and her fragrance would fill the air. She was indescribably beautiful. It felt like the entire god realm was shrouded in her fragrance. After the client transformed into a human form, she became an incense fairy and served the immortal emperor in the immortal palace. The client was very happy. When the peony fairy, who transformed at the same time, was still admired by other male gods and tortured by the jealousy of other female gods, the client became a little maid in the immortal palace to repay her savior. When the immortal emperor saw the weed beside the peony fairy, he casually said that it was an opportunity for a weed to grow here. He also knew that he was inferior, but he didn't dare to overshadow the peony fairy's beauty. Although these words didn't sound good, it really allowed LVE to survive in the peony garden. Thinking about it, if a weed grew stronger and taller than a peony fairy, it would be pulled out sooner or later. The great emperors in the god realm were powerful and noble. Since the immortal emperor said so, this weed naturally had a different opportunity. Just a sentence could change a person's fate. LVE worked hard to absorb the essence of the god realm's sun and moon. She wasn't as talented as the peony fairy, but when the peony fairy was still swaying and showing her beauty, LV was still absorbing the essence of the sun and moon. When she transformed, all the immortals were attracted by the sky full of petals and fragrance. No one paid attention to LVE's transformation. In fact, there was nothing good about a weed. When the god realm had a new fairy, it would be registered. Then, LVE would be given the name LVE and wear green clothes. The registrar casually named her. After being assigned to the immortal palace, LVE should repay the immortal emperor's karma. LVE was very happy. She became an incense fairy and lit incense for the immortal emperor. She also had a chance to meet the immortal emperor. LVE originally thought that this kind of life would be like this. One day, the incomparably beautiful peony fairy rushed into the palace, saying that someone was chasing her and begging the immortal emperor to let her hide. At this time, the peony fairy was targeted by other female immortals and chased to the immortal palace of the immortal emperor. The immortal emperor slightly nodded and asked her if she was the little girl from the peony garden. She nodded and begged him to let her hide. As a result, Peony stayed in the Longevity Hall. Of course, Longevity Immortal Emperor also fell in love with Peony during this period. Every day, there would be an endless stream of male immortals and male gods coming to visit the Longevity Hall. They were all here to see the Peony. Therefore, the immortal emperor liked the Peony fairy even more. Good things need to be fought over. Green intent. It was impossible for Lu Yi to not have any other feelings for her savior. She was born in a lowly place and did not have a good foundation. In addition, she had the opportunity to interact with the immortal emperor every day, so her feelings for him were even deeper. Love is accompanied by doubt, jealousy, and insecurity. It was impossible for Green E not to be jealous of the Peony Fairy, especially when it was inexplicably hated by women. When women saw the Peony Fairy, it was as if she had killed her father. The more the male gods in the immortal world were infatuated with the Peony Fairy, the more the female immortals targeted the Peony Fairy. Despite Longevity Emperor's protection, the female immortals still managed to get the Peony Fairy out of the Longevity Palace with the help of Green E. Green E did not want to see the person she liked. When she saw the Peony Fairy, it was as if she had changed into a different person. She was noble and indifferent, but she was obsessed with the Peony Fairy and gave her whatever she wanted. It was really unbearable to look at her. In the end, with the cooperation of the female immortals, the peony fairy was banished to the mortal world. However, she did not return to the mortal world. Instead, she went to the demon world. The noble fairy enchanted all the demons, demon kings, and demon generals. Then, all the female demons in the demon world targeted the noble fairy. The demon world wanted to take the noble peony fairy for themselves, but the immortal world absolutely disagreed. Then, the gods and demons started a war, and the world was turned upside down. Ning Shu. All the men in the world love me, all the women in the world hate me, and the whole world revolves because of me? The war is to rob me? Ning Shu seriously suspected that the peony fairy was completely a virus. As for Green Yi, who took away the peony fairy, she faced a severe punishment. Her soul was extracted and whipped every day until her soul was scattered. There was no chance for reincarnation. Green Yi looked at the noble and ferocious face of Longevity Emperor, which made her shudder. In her mind, Longevity Emperor was not like this. He was so crazy and ferocious. Green Yi shed tears and said that she did not regret it. If she had to do it again, she would still do it. The peony fairy was a scourge. Green Yi's wish, she hoped that Longevity Emperor would not fall in love with the peony fairy. Even if he did not fall in love with her, she hoped that Longevity Emperor would not be so crazy as usual. Ning Shu felt that if the heavens wanted to destroy people, they would first make them crazy. With the appearance of the peony fairy, the gods and demons started a war, and both gods and demons were destroyed. This was probably the biggest female lead halo she had ever encountered. The Mary Sue halo covered the whole world. Any man who saw the female lead would fall in love with her. Women who saw the peony fairy wanted to kill her. This was a crazy world. Ning Shu accepted the plot and hurriedly absorbed the essence of the sun and moon. He had the secret book of plant cultivation. Ning Shu activated it. When he turned into a human, he would cultivate the peerless martial arts. She could not be tied up and whipped every day. If she was locked up, she would not be able to go back. Although it was the heavenly realm, Ning Shu's place was like an ordinary human society. The only difference was that these immortals had beauty and greater power. The fragrance of the peony fairy next to him made Ning Shu want to cry. He was about to shed rainbow-colored tears. And it grew next to the peony fairy. Ning Shu felt that the client's fate was a key factor in pushing the peony fairy down to the mortal world. After all, without Green Yi's help, those female immortals could not even enter the Longevity Hall, let alone push the peony fairy into the demon realm. The men in the demon realm wanted to have a noble fairy and started a war. Ning Shu touched his chin and pondered. A weed did not have a chin. Ning Shu suspected that this world was evolving. That was why the virus-like peony fairy was born to destroy the gods and demons. Maybe the existence of the gods and demons put a burden on the plane, so it started a mode of extinction. In that case, the birth of the heavenly Tao was actually intentional. Whether it was true or not, these were all Ning Shu's speculations. The peony fairy was born in the heavenly realm. She flirted with all the male immortals in the heavenly realm and won the hearts of many. Then she came to the demon realm and turned it upside down. The gods and demons started a war just to get a beauty. The honey trap was a sure thing. Being able to accommodate powerful beings like gods and demons, the plane wall should be very tough. This was a high-level plane. Chapter 2375. It was probably a stalk of grass. Ning Shu pondered for a while and fell asleep from exhaustion. The fragrance of the peony beside him made Ning Shu feel as if he had fallen asleep in a sea of fragrance. After waking up, Ning Shu continued to absorb the essence of the sun and moon, and he tried to lower his body as much as possible to hide under the leaves of the peony tree in order to avoid being noticed. Every day, immortals would come to the peony garden to admire the beauty of the peony tree. Ning Shu sensed that Emperor Chongqing was also here. He was sitting in the pavilion and chatting with Emperor Qinghua. Emperor Chongqing did indeed possess a noble aura. His aura was as light as water, and he was like a flower standing at the peak of a mountain, looking down upon the world as lonely as snow. "Look, There's a weed growing beside the peony tree. Emperor Changsheng caught a glimpse of the weed out of the corner of his eye. Everyone immediately noticed the weed. Emperor Qinghua's brows furrowed. How is Jade Maiden Sihua taking care of the peony garden? Why isn't she taking care of the weed? Emperor Changsheng only replied, seeing as it's already grown, it's a fortuitous encounter. A weed growing here is also a fortuitous encounter. It's also a sign of its own inferiority, but it can't obscure the beauty of the peony tree, so there's no harm in leaving it here. Ning Shu felt the will of the heavenly Tao descend upon his body after Emperor Changsheng's words. She now had karma with Emperor Changsheng. Ning Shu's lips twitched. It looked like he would have to go to the immortal palace and become a fairy incense immortal. He thought back to what Emperor Changsheng had said to Lu Yi, who was on the brink of death, that a lowly thing like her should be grateful for her life. However, he still wanted to harm Fairy Peony, who was absorbing the essence of the sun and moon with him. At that time, Emperor Changsheng had lost all of his coldness after losing Fairy Peony, and he was like a cruel and ravenous wolf, tearing apart all those who had caused him to lose Fairy Peony. Ning Shu heaved a forlorn sigh. Hence, she still had to follow the plot. Whether or not she would be captured and whipped day and night would depend on her abilities. What a terrifying halo. If he had legs, Ning Shu really wanted to stay away from the peony. He never knew that the peony was so fragrant. She was a weed. Would the weed bloom flowers? Such a fragrant flower, it was completely to arouse her jealousy. Ning Shu only wanted to say that this flower was so fragrant that it could kill a person. It attracted countless bees and butterflies. There were countless wild bees and butterflies. Ning Shu was speechless. Does this mean that when I was still a virgin, there were already many men who fell in love with me? Shielding herself from the outside world's interference, Ning Shu hurried to cultivate. She wanted to become an immortal as soon as possible so that the peony fairy could transform before her. If she stood there naked, she would be pulled out sooner or later. The land was the source of all power. Probably because of the law of wood, Ning Shu was able to continuously absorb the energy in the land. Especially since this was the immortal world, it was suddenly filled with vitality. Ning Shu's roots grew deeper and she absorbed more vitality. With energy, her body would grow. Ning Shu suppressed this energy and directly condensed it to prevent her body from growing too fast and blocking the beauty of the peony flower from being pulled out by others. Ning Shu cultivated. Every day, he could smell the fragrance of the peony fairy next door. It was very fragrant. The peony fairy didn't seem to know that there was a grass next to her and didn't talk to it. Sometimes, Ning Shu heard her softly saying something. He couldn't understand the details, but her voice was definitely pleasant to hear. Describing it as an aureole coming out of the valley was an insult to her voice. In short, just her voice alone could mesmerize people. Her voice was like the most beautiful instrument in the world. It made people feel relaxed and happy. It was as if a clear spring was flowing through their heart. Beautiful, enjoyable. Ning Shu cultivated and occasionally listened to her talk. He treated it as cultivating his mind. What kind of situation could gather all the beauty of time on this person? Her figure was excellent. Her legs were straight and her legs were 8 meters long. Needless to say, her skin was so tender and smooth that a touch would leave a red mark. Her facial features were definitely the most beautiful. Therefore, this was an absolutely perfect thing. The spiritual energy in the immortal world was really good. The concentration of spiritual energy was very high. If a spirit gathering array was set up, it was possible to condense drops of spiritual liquid. Cultivation would be twice the result with half the effort. The immortal world's environment was really good. Blue sky, white clouds, flowers, cranes, and all kinds of beautiful immortal birds were flying around. Not to mention other things, just the environment alone made people feel relaxed and happy. Moreover, the men and women here were all handsome men and beautiful women. Everything was very beautiful. One day, Ning Shu felt thunder above his head. Ning Shu knew that he was going to pass the tribulation. As long as he passed it, he could smoothly transform. Why did tribulation clouds appear? The peony fairy swayed her body. It's not time for tribulation yet. When the immortals saw tribulation clouds appear in the peony garden, they all thought that the peony was going to pass the tribulation. Some pinched their fingers and calculated. It wasn't the peony who was going to pass the tribulation, but someone else. Many people came to the peony garden to see how beautiful the peony, whose body was already very beautiful, would become after transforming. The tribulation lightning fell on the peony, the weeds next to her. But because the two of them were very close, the peony was more or less affected by the lightning tribulation. Originally, it wasn't time for tribulation yet, but the peony's body was injured. Seeing this, some high gods quickly set up a barrier to protect the peony from the lightning tribulation. But they were puzzled. It didn't seem like the peony was going to pass the tribulation. Ning Shu's body flashed with lightning. He felt that the cells in his body were about to burst. It seemed that he couldn't withstand the power of the lightning, but there was an endless stream of vitality in his body that repaired the damage. The lightning didn't stop striking Ning Shu's body. The immortals who came to watch the tribulation were disappointed. It turned out that a weed was going to pass the tribulation. They were speechless. Some immortals turned and left. What was there to see about a weed's tribulation? Ning Shu felt his body slowly change. Finally, it floated up and turned into a green human body. Ning Shu narrowed his eyes and touched his face and hair. He stretched lazily. Sure enough, the human body was more comfortable. In the future, he wouldn't have to smell the fragrance of the peony. Ning Shu flicked his sleeve and a mirror appeared in front of him. In the mirror, a woman in green clothes appeared. Her face was exquisite. She was actually quite beautiful, but the god realm didn't lack beauties. Compared to these female immortals and goddesses, the client couldn't be considered good-looking. She could only be described as ordinary. Plus, she was just a weed with no noble bloodline. Her future was limited. Ning Shu swept a glance at the onlookers and left in the air, ignoring them. The others saw that it was just a weed's transformation and felt very bored. One after another, they left the peony garden. Chapter 2376. Some immortals saw that Peony had been injured by the lightning tribulation and gave her some healing elixirs. Peony shook her body and expressed her gratitude to these immortals. Ning Shu went to the celestial official who registered the female immortals. The celestial official glanced at Ning Shu and then looked away. He asked slowly, "Where are you from? What are your roots? How long have you been cultivating?" Peony Garden. Wait, you're not the Peony Garden's peony fairy? The celestial official asked. Ning Shu, asking for the size of my psychological trauma. He was speechless that he had to get involved with the Peony Garden's peony fairy. Chatting. Where are you from? Peony Garden. Isn't there a peony of unparalleled beauty there? Do you know her? No matter where he went, he couldn't get rid of the peony fairy. Living under her shadow for the rest of his life, he felt that his birth was a tragedy. Ning Shu looked at the celestial official expressionlessly. No, I'm a weed. I've been cultivating for more than 200 years. Today I transformed. My name is Green. The celestial official recorded it and then told the female immortals what they had to do, unless they were very noble. Actually, the immortal world gave Ning Shu the feeling of an imperial palace. Although she was a fairy, she obviously had to do things like a palace maid. Moreover, immortals had very long lives. If they didn't change their appearance, they would live even longer. It was really hopeless. If he did something wrong, he would immediately be sent to the mortal world. His lifespan would be less than 100 years, and he would be a mortal who would die of old age and illness. Ning Shu sighed. Soon, Ning Shu was assigned to the Longevity Immortal Palace to be the incense fairy. The job was relatively easy. He just had to make some spices. Ning Shu was brought to the Longevity Immortal Palace. There weren't many people there, and it was very cold. It was like the Longevity Immortal Emperor himself, cold and unparalleled. The Immortal Palace's spiritual energy was very abundant, even more so than the Peony Garden. It was better to cultivate here. Ning Shu started to circulate his peerless martial arts. Spiritual energy rushed into his body, and it was very comfortable. In addition to his peerless martial arts, Ning Shu also cultivated plants. When he fought, he would be able to extend many vines. Although weeds were lowly, they had tenacious vitality. Even if they were about to die, they could produce new weeds and grow again. However, these little tricks were useless in the hands of the immortal world. As a newbie, there was naturally someone to teach Ning Shu, including the incense that the Longevity Emperor liked and the smell that he disliked. Ning Shu noted it down and pondered how to complete this task. As one of the more powerful great emperors in the heavenly realm, if he wasn't fascinated by the Peony Fairy, how could he start a war with the Devil Realm? After the Peony Fairy arrived at the Longevity Hall, several other emperors, such as Emperor Ziwei and Emperor Qinghua, came to the Longevity Hall and encountered the Peony Fairy. All of them developed a favorable impression of her. A few great emperors would definitely agree to start a war with the Devil World. The Immortal Realm and Demon Realm were united for the first time. The winner would have the right to have the noble Peony Fairy. Therefore, this mission was very difficult. Under Mary Sue's halo, no one could resist. Although these people from the divine realm were immortals, they still had the 7 emotions and 6 desires that humans should have: love, hate, greed, anger, and infatuation. How could one stop a person from liking another person? He thought that love was just like drinking water when one was thirsty. Ning Shu had a headache. Immortal, immortal, immortal emperor. Didn't he have any self-control? Ning Shu expressed his disdain. If a Tom Su stood in front of her, she would hypnotize herself that he was just a skeleton. She just wanted to see if he had the heart to resist. Perhaps gods were more free and romantic than humans. They never suppressed their inner feelings. When they were in the Peony Garden, Ning Shu deliberately led the Thunder Tribulation to the Peony Fairy so that the next Thunder Tribulation would be more powerful. This meant the Peony Fairy was protected by the heavenly Tao. And there were so many attentive male gods who set up barriers for her to prevent her from being struck by lightning. Sometimes, there were some things that couldn't be envied. Lu Yi, hurry up and burn some incense. Emperor Qinghua is coming to the Immortal Palace to play chess with you, Ning Shu instructed. Ning Shu nodded and went to burn some incense in the palace. Emperor Chongqing was sitting with his legs crossed and drawing something on a piece of paper. Ning Shu extended a salute before opening the lid of the incense burner. He scooped some incense into the burner, lit the fire, and closed the lid. After a short while, a faint scent wafted out from the incense burner along with the smoke. The scent was very light, and it was quite refreshing. Emperor Chongqing raised his head and looked at Ning Shu, who was standing at the side with her head lowered. Are you new here? Yes, I've only just taken human form, Ning Shu replied with his head still lowered. Emperor Chongqing didn't ask any more questions. He didn't care that a new immortal had arrived. When Emperor Qinghua arrived, the cold expression on Emperor Chongqing's face finally dissipated slightly, and the two of them began to play chess. Other immortal maids brought immortal tea to the table. The two of them were playing chess using their intents. Scenes of war between the two countries appeared on the chessboard, and blood splattered all over the chessboard. Emperor Chongqing's brows furrowed, and he placed down a chess piece, upon which a large swath of his opponent was killed. Emperor Qinghua chuckled heartily. There's a massive disparity in power between the Wei country and the Jun country. It looks like I've won today. Ning Shu raised his head and quickly scanned the chessboard. The scenes of war were changing as the pieces changed. He was using all of the living beings in the world as chess pieces, right? The battles in the mortal world were merely the result of these immortals playing chess out of boredom. All of the dead were ants to these immortals. Ning Shu added some more incense into the incense burner, and the aroma of the incense became even more pronounced. As the battle progressed, both Emperor Qinghua and Emperor Chongqing wore serious expressions and didn't place down their chess pieces for a long time. The scenes on the chessboard were filled with corpses. Many people had already died, but even more people were going to die before a victor was decided. Ning Shu only lowered his head and grimaced. These gods controlled the mortal world and used all of the living beings in the world as chess pieces, but they were also manipulated by the heavenly Tao in the end, and the divine realm and demon realm fought like they were in the mortal world. Perhaps in an even higher place, There were also two people playing chess like this, using the God realm and the devil realm as chess pieces, fighting to the death, and only the God realm and the devil realm would die. Both of them died like ants in the mortal world. The final victor was Emperor Changsheng. Emperor Qinghua was a little perplexed. How did you win? The two countries aren't evenly matched. Emperor Changsheng took a sip of the immortal tea with a smile on his face. Emperor Qinghua was a little unconvinced. Let's play again. This time, we'll play against two countries of equal power. A few years had already passed since the divine realm had played a game of chess. During these few years, countless battles had taken place and countless lives had been lost. Chapter 2377. Emperor Changsheng turned down Emperor Qinghua's suggestion for another round and removed the chessboard. We'll play again next time. Emperor Qinghua was unwilling to give up and insisted on playing again, but Emperor Changsheng only shook his head. Emperor Qinghua couldn't convince him otherwise, so he gave up and left the immortal palace. Make more incense in the future. Emperor Changsheng turned to Ning Shu and said, I'll reward you with a golden pill. Ning Shu immediately expressed his gratitude. It wasn't a bad thing to receive an immortal pill. After all, an immortal pill like this could bring one back from the dead. Where did you ascend from? Fairy servant is a weed that grows in the peony garden, Ning Shu replied. Oh, so you're a weed that grows around little peony? You transformed before she did, Emperor Changsheng said. Ning Shu seriously suspected that the immortal emperor had already fallen in love with the peony fairy when she was still a flower when he called her Little Peony. Ning Shu, what the fuck? Ning Shu walked out of the palace with the golden pill in his hands before popping it into his mouth and munching on it like a bean. It seemed to be a little more powerful, but it was useless. Ning Shu began to work without any pay. Perhaps the boss would toss him a golden pill when he was in a good mood. It sounded like an immortal pill, but Ning Shu didn't really care. Cultivating for a while was more useful than eating golden pills. Incense was quite a busy job. If the boss was about to go to bed, he would need incense. However, he couldn't light something to wake him up at a time like this. Different situations required different incense. Thankfully, he didn't get mixed up. Ning Shu had been working for a while now, but the Peony Garden Fairy still hadn't transformed. The Peony Garden Fairy's transformation was something that the entire divine realm was looking forward to. Everyone was fantasizing about how beautiful the Peony Garden Fairy would be. Ning Shu had been to the Peony Garden. He wanted to uproot the roots of the Peony Fairy directly, but after thinking about it, there were still the Peach Blossom Fairy, the Lotus Fairy, and the Chrysanthemum Fairy. Wherever he went, chrysanthemums would bloom. Moreover, Ning Shu was afraid that if he killed her, it would affect the plan of the heavenly Tao. When the time came, a bolt of lightning would strike her to death. What was even more terrifying was that he would be targeted by all the male gods in the entire heavenly realm. There were also so many big shots. They were probably going to blast her into ashes. Furthermore, Peony herself was protected by the heavenly Tao. Tens of thousands of female immortals and goddesses in the heavenly realm were unable to kill her. At every turn, there would be male gods saving the damsel in distress. She herself was also able to turn misfortune into fortune. I won't touch the darling of the heavenly Tao. Moreover, this mission is incomparably cold. What a noble immortal emperor. Don't fall in love with the Peony Fairy. Ning Shu smacked his head. He was in charge of everything, but he really couldn't control who she liked. This was definitely a fucking mission. He might as well throw the Peony Fairy into the demon realm. Ning Shu, he already had a bold idea in his heart. Should he just kill the immortal emperor? If he died, he definitely wouldn't fall in love with the Peony Fairy. The Peony Fairy was protected by the heavenly Tao. He couldn't possibly protect the immortal emperor like that. Ning Shu left the Peony Garden. The fragrance assailed his nose. However, the male god said that the fragrance assailed his nose. He guessed that the male gods and female immortals had different noses. None of the female immortals said that the Peony Fairy smelled good. However, the male gods liked this smell. Some of the female immortals had no choice but to apply this kind of pungent fragrance on their bodies in an attempt to attract the male gods. However, pirated goods were pirated goods. How could they compare to the natural fragrance of the peony fairy? Among the flower fairies, only the peony fairy stood out. Her beauty overshadowed all the other female immortals. Female immortals? Fuck, I can't stand it. Kill her. After leaving the peony garden, Ning Shu saw some male gods going into the peony garden to look at the peony fairy. Ning Shu was puzzled. It was just a flower. Did he really not get tired of looking at it every day? Or was it that the immortal realm was so bored that he could look at the same flower every day, and even make it look so beautiful? She was convinced. Ning Shu really didn't understand the beauty of the flower. If the peony fairy transformed, she might be able to look at it for a while. You're the incense fairy who was with the peony fairy? A male god stopped her. Ning Shu nodded. What's the matter? You transformed before the peony fairy. Ning Shu? So, couldn't he transform before her? Why was this guy stopping her? This male god was quite handsome. To be precise, there were no ugly people in the heavenly realm. Everyone had their own beauty and handsomeness. There was never a place that was so pleasing to the eyes. Looking around, there were all beauties and handsome guys. She felt like her soul was being purified. Even her eyes were shining. After a while, she became numb. You, Heaven Origin High God hesitated. I'm Heaven Origin High God. Ning Shu nodded and bowed. Greetings, High God. Heaven Origin High God looked at Ning Shu as if to confirm something. You? Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. What's wrong with him? Just say it. I'm going to light incense for the eternal heavenly emperor. Ning Shu said. Ning Shu didn't have a good impression of these male gods. They were called gods, but they couldn't even resist a little beauty, even with the extra Mary Sue halo. You are. Heaven Origin High God hesitated and said, 0752. Ning Shu's pupils shrank. Then he reacted. This was a mission enforcer and a male one at that. Ning Shu sympathized with him. Under the female lead halo and Mary Sue halo, men would become blindly infatuated. He just didn't know if they could resist it. Ning Shu greeted him. He just didn't know what this mission enforcer's mission was. Was it to protect the peony fairy? All the male gods in the god realm were like flower protectors. Even if there were bad gods, they would use all kinds of methods to obtain the peony fairy. Because of the peony fairy, the entire god realm was filled with the sour smell of love and the smell of overturned vats of aged vinegar. The god realm was bustling with excitement. Heaven Origin High God got the answer he wanted. He didn't say much to Ning Shu. He just told him to be careful, which was considered a polite greeting. Then, he turned and entered the peony garden. They didn't ask each other what the mission was. Ning Shu shrugged. No matter what the mission enforcer's mission was, it couldn't threaten her. After all, her mission was to deal with the eternal heavenly emperor, not the peony fairy. The peony fairy's charm had nothing to do with her. It was just that her identity as a weed was always brought up. Sigh, the weed beside the peony fairy, the weed in the peony garden, Ning Shu and What did the weed have to do with you? Why did you have to mention the weed and the flowers together? But why hadn't the peony fairy transformed? Was it too early? Ning Shu rubbed her chin and pondered. She guessed that when she went through the tribulation, the peony fairy was affected. Her foundation was damaged and the tribulation was delayed. Chapter 2381. Ning Shu was shocked by the jealousy and hatred in his heart. He suppressed the negative emotions in his heart. She was the first person Ning Shu had seen who could attract hatred like this. Ning Shu grabbed the peony fairy's wrist. Her hand was soft and smooth, like the most gorgeous silk. This touch... The peony fairy was a little panicked. She was frightened by Ning Shu's sudden grab. Her eyes were as clear as Bambi's. At this moment, she was frightened. Ning Shu's stern face was reflected in her watery eyes. Come with me. Ning Shu pulled the peony fairy and was about to leave. Incense, bring the peony fairy in. The door of the immortal palace suddenly opened. and the cold voice of the immortal emperor sounded. Ning Shu was speechless. Damn it. She almost pulled the peony fairy away. What are you talking about? Powerful plot power. I can't hurt the peony fairy, but can I deal with you? She only said that she wouldn't let the immortal emperor fall in love with the peony fairy. As for the immortal emperor's moral character, it was none of her business. Ouch! The peony fairy's wrist hurt. Pain flashed across her face. She saw the auspicious clouds were getting closer and closer. The female immortals were coming. Well, can we leave here? The peony fairy begged pitifully. The peony between her eyebrows was bright red, adding an enchanting feeling to her innocence. Pure and innocent enchanting, the peony fairy was the most charming. Incense, bring her in. The immortal emperor's voice sounded again. This time, it was with dignity and a trace of anger. Incense, bring her in. The immortal emperor is going to be angry. The mystic fairy walked out and bowed to the peony fairy. Please come with me. Well, can you let go of my hand? The peony fairy asked Ning Shu softly and pitifully. Incense. The mystic fairy reached out to pull Ning Shu's hand away. Ning Shu held the peony fairy's hand tightly. Finally, he pulled her into his arms and hugged her. Ning Shu's sudden move made the mystic fairy and the peony fairy confused. Ning Shu said, I like the peony fairy. Can you let the peony fairy be with me? Burn incense. Mystic fairy stammered. She looked at Ning Shu as if he was an alien. You and the peony fairy are both female immortals. So what if she's a fairy? Love doesn't care about age, gender, or race. Ning Shu took advantage of the time when Mystic Fairy was in a daze and dragged the confused Peony Fairy away. Ning Shu left the Longevity Hall with the Peony Fairy and headed to other places in the Divinity. Mystic Fairy was confused. It took her a while to come back to her senses and report to the two great monarchs. Emperor Qing Hua couldn't help but burst into laughter. A weed falling in love with a peony, and a female immortal at that. Oh my, this is hilarious. Could it be that they've developed feelings for each other after spending so much time together? Emperor Changxing frowned. Go and bring her back. Mystic Fairy hurriedly exited the palace and heaved a long sigh. What was up with that weed? She had almost been punished by the great monarchs. The Peony Fairy looked at Ning Shu and didn't know what to say. We're both female immortals. I know. I'm just saying that on purpose. There are many female immortals in the Longevity Hall. You're going to be hated by all of them no matter where you go, so it's not safe for you to go there, Ning Shu explained. She would be fine as long as she didn't go to the Longevity Hall. The Peony Fairy nodded. I see. Thank you. Ning Shu took a deep breath to repress his surging emotions. Ning Shu set up an enchantment barrier. Stay here. I'll come and find you later. Alright, come back as soon as possible. The Peony Fairy seemed to be very trusting of Ning Shu. It was probably because they had grown up in the same place. Ning Shu returned to the Longevity Hall and was greeted by the sight of the Peony Fairy, who was supposed to be inside the enchantment barrier. Ning Shu was quite displeased. He felt like his efforts had been for nothing. The Peony Fairy was also a little dumbstruck. She didn't understand why she had suddenly appeared here. Emperor Qing Hua wiped the sweat off his forehead. His features were a little pale, but a smile appeared on his face as he looked at the Peony Fairy. You really are little Peony from the Peony Garden. The Peony Fairy hurriedly extended a respectful bow toward the two emperors. Emperor Changxing glanced at Ning Shu, and Ning Shu fell to his knees involuntarily. Thump. His knees were in excruciating pain. You deserve to be punished. Go and receive 3 bolts of divine lightning, Emperor Changxing said coldly. The Peony Fairy immediately pleaded, Your Majesty, she only took me away to help me. There really are female immortals chasing after me. Emperor Changxing turned to Ning Shu with a cold expression. Go and receive your punishment. Ning Shu rolled his eyes internally before standing up and leaving. Emperor Qing Hua asked, She broke your restriction and left just like that? Emperor Changxing didn't say anything. Instead, he turned to the Peony Fairy. You live in the Longevity Hall. No one will dare to do anything to you. Please forgive her, Your Majesty. She only did this to save me. The peony fairy pleaded on Ning Shu's behalf. A hint of a smile appeared on Emperor Chongqing's face, but there was a hint of mockery in his smile. It was just that no one knew who this mockery was directed at. You haven't taken human form for long, so there are some things you don't understand. You'll find out in the future. Do you really think she likes you? Emperor Chongqing's expression was extremely cold. The peony fairy said, I know she said that on purpose. She's a plant, so she'll definitely be destroyed by the divine lightning. The peony fairy was also a plant that had ascended to immortality, so she was naturally fearful of divine lightning. Emperor Qinghua interjected, All right, just listen to what he has to say. He then turned to Emperor Chongqing with a teasing smile. With the peony fairy here, your longevity hall is going to be flooded with people from now on. Emperor Qinghua chuckled and was just about to leave when he thought about it for a moment before giving the peony fairy a few pills that could change her appearance. In fact, this kind of elixir that could change one's appearance was useless because the fragrance of the peony fairy could be smelled within a radius of 1 mile. There was no other shop that sold it. Ning Shu exited the longevity hall to receive his punishment. There were many female immortals pacing back and forth outside the longevity hall, but none of them dared to enter. Seeing Ning Shu emerge, all of them surrounded Ning Shu and asked him if that bitch was in there. All of them gritted their teeth at the mention of the peony fairy's name with unbearable jealousy and hatred. Ning Shu nodded and replied, She's in there. Emperor Chongqing has left the peony fairy behind. Do you want to go in? All of the female immortals cursed the peony fairy for being a seductive vixen instead of a peony upon hearing this. Ning Shu ignored all of these female immortals and made his way to the platform to receive his punishment, where he was struck by 3 bolts of lightning and almost had his soul destroyed. Ning Shu made a mental note of this. Once her cultivation progressed, There were male gods and female immortals, but the female immortals were forbidden from entering the longevity hall. The female immortal who was stopped outside stomped her feet in anger. It had only been a short while and this vixen had already bewitched the longevity immortal emperor. The longevity immortal emperor was a flower on a high mountain. No one in the heavenly realm could win his favor. Now, the longevity immortal emperor was protecting her. This made the female immortals even more jealous. Their resentment was almost tangible, especially when the male god they liked came here every day. It was easy to imagine what he was thinking. Wasn't he just here to see the peony fairy? Some female immortals had no choice. They couldn't enter and the vixen didn't come out. They went to the noble goddess and asked her to tell the longevity immortal emperor to hand over the peony fairy. Otherwise, she would have to face the wrath of all the female immortals in the heavenly realm. However, the everlasting immortal emperor didn't give her any face. He chased her out of the everlasting palace empty-handed. The everlasting immortal emperor didn't give her any face at all. How was she supposed to survive in the immortal world? Of course, this hatred was all directed at the peony fairy. The more people you have to protect, the more I want to kill you. Otherwise, how can I show my face? Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu, who was recuperating, looked at the lively silence. Sure enough, after living for so long, the entire heavenly realm went crazy over such a trivial matter. Not only were the female immortals outside eyeing the peony fairy covetously, but even the female immortals in the longevity hall hated her. Look at the peony fairy. She seduced the emperor to protect her. As soon as she came, those male gods flew over like bees. I really don't know what's so good about her. She's just used to pretending to be innocent. Ning Shu listened to the female immortals who were sleeping next to him. His tone was sour, jealous, and hateful. He admired the peony fairy's ability to attract hatred again. In the demon realm, those female immortals became more irritable. Immortals were originally tough, so this made them even more irritable. From time to time, fights broke out in the demon realm. When a female immortal became irritable, she would directly fight with the person who protected the peony fairy. You want to protect her, right? I'll beat you too. Speaking of which, these female immortals in the heavenly realm were noble and elegant. Their fighting strength was not comparable to the fierce female immortals at all. Even so, the Peony Fairy did not do anything. Ning Shu's ears were filled with these female immortals who gathered together and chattered endlessly. He was impatient to listen to them. The more he attacked, the more envious he became. He probably wished he was the one who attacked. The more self-proclaimed a woman who knew her place, the more vicious she was to attack those who were bold and unrestrained. If you had the ability, you could also be beautiful. If you had the ability, you could also be protected by the heavenly Tao. But you were not so lucky. So what if you could not hurt the beauty of others? However, the Peony Fairy was really too hateful. When facing her, one's entire soul would be shrouded in negative emotions. There was probably something wrong with the Peony Fairy's magnetic field. Like repelling, opposite attracting, like a magnet. Ning Shu left the room and walked to the main hall. He saw an endless stream of male immortals coming to see the Peony Fairy. Ning Shu also saw Primordial Sky God, the mission enforcer. He actually came to join in the fun? Ning Shu's eyes almost popped out. Could it be that even the mission enforcers were charmed by her? Primordial Sky God also saw Ning Shu and pointed in a direction. Ning Shu went to the pavilion he pointed to. Why are you here? Are you also here to see the Peony Fairy? Ning Shu asked in surprise. Primordial Sky God rubbed his nose and said with an awkward expression, I really am here to see the Peony Fairy. Ning Shu, you are also charmed? I can't control myself. My mind is filled with the Peony Fairy. I think about her day and night. I can't control myself at all. Primordial Sky God frowned. Ning Shu, what was the mindset of a mission enforcer? Ning Shu still said, you have to control yourself. Don't think too much. The more you think about it, the more you beautify the Peony Fairy. I live with the Peony Fairy, and she eats 2 buckets of rice every day. She grinds her teeth and drools when she sleeps. Primordial Sky God. Actually, she is quite cute. She is cuter than the Peony Fairy. She has such a cute side in private. Ning Shu, my bad temper. Needless to say, these males' love for the Peony Fairy was just like how female immortals hated the Peony Fairy. There was no way to stop them. Chapter 2383. Even she couldn't control her anger when facing the Peony Fairy. If she had such a terrifying aura, no one would be able to resist it. She was a mission enforcer, so her anger was drawn out. Love was always better than negative things. It was more addictive. Did that mean the Eternal Emperor already had deep feelings for the Peony Fairy? Ning Shu felt that he should go and guard the Peony Fairy. Heaven Origin God probably saw Ning Shu, who was also a mission enforcer, and felt a little awkward. He suppressed his yearning and love and left the Eternal Palace. Ning Shu went to the Eastern Palace, but before he could enter, he was stopped. Xian, who was guarding the Eastern Palace, stopped Ning Shu impatiently. What are you doing? The Emperor said that no one is allowed to enter. The Xian Yi guarding the Eastern Palace were very unhappy. They looked very humiliated. It was as if they had something to do with the Peony Fairy. It didn't matter if they really hated the Peony Fairy or if they were just following the trend. They just opened Ning Shu's eyes. Ning Shu guarded the Eastern Palace. He sat cross-legged and cultivated. He was here to see if the Eternal Emperor would come to visit the Peony Fairy. The two Xian Yi saw Ning Shu shamelessly guarding the Eastern Palace. One of them couldn't help but ask Ning Shu, Xinxiang, you don't really like the Peony Fairy, do you? What was the difference between him and those infatuated male idols who were separated by the walls of the palace? Ning Shu asked. Why do you say that? The whole Eternal Palace is saying that you like the Peony Fairy. Even the Emperor knows. Ning Shu said, it's just a rumor. You don't have to believe it. The Peony Fairy and I are from the Peony Garden. People from the same place are bound to be close. Sure enough, the rumors were getting more and more ridiculous. She was infatuated with the Peony Fairy, but not like that. She actually wanted to hit the Peony Fairy. Can you two sisters let me in to see the Peony Fairy? Ning Shu asked quickly. No, the Great Emperor said that no one is allowed to enter. The two fairies shook their heads. But you really don't have good taste. How could you fall for such a female fairy? She seduced all the male gods in the entire god realm. If the female fairies outside knew that you like her, who knows what they would do to you? Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu gave up on explaining. If there was a misunderstanding, then so be it. Ning Shu stayed here. While cultivating, he released his spiritual power to check the peony fairy's situation inside. However, the inside was surrounded by a barrier. His divine sense could not enter at all. Was this a prison? Ning Shu withdrew his divine sense, leaned against the wall, and closed his eyes. Great Emperor. The two fairies hurriedly bowed when they saw the longevity Great Emperor. Ning Shu opened his eyes and saw the longevity Great Emperor standing at the door. Ning Shu immediately cursed in his heart. Then, he slapped his thigh with realization. The longevity Great Emperor must have done this on purpose. Now, it was convenient for him to lock her up here. Although it was to protect the peony fairy, it was more to imprison the peony fairy so that he could enjoy her alone. He did not want her to attract other male gods when she went out. Ning Shu bowed to the longevity Great Emperor expressionlessly. You want to be struck by lightning? Who allowed you to come here? The longevity Great Emperor frowned and said unhappily. Ning Shu lowered his head and said, I want to see the peony fairy. The longevity Great Emperor's face was as cold as ice. He looked at Ning Shu with a piercing gaze. Don't come again. If there's a next time, you'll receive 10 bolts of lightning. 3 bolts of lightning were enough to kill someone. 10 bolts of lightning were enough to shatter one's soul. Ning Shu's face was cold. I want to see the peony fairy. Not allowed. You're just a lowly fairy. How dare you disobey my orders? I know what you're thinking. Don't try to get close to the peony fairy with a fake face. The longevity Great Emperor's aura was very strong, and it was directed at Ning Shu. It was like a mountain was pressing down on him. Ning Shu really didn't care about this pressure. She looked up and said, Then what do you think this immortal servant is planning? You won't fall in love with the peony fairy. Don't try to get close to her by saying we're from the same sect. Without my permission, you're not allowed to come here again, the longevity Great Emperor said coldly. Ning Shu laughed instead. If I were to spread the word that the immortal emperor imprisoned the peony fairy and wanted to have her for himself, all the male gods in the god realm would see you as an enemy. Although the immortal emperor is strong, many ants can bite an elephant to death. I don't know if the immortal emperor can handle it. Ignorant fool. The longevity Great Emperor did not get angry. Instead, he looked at Ning Shu with pity. If you don't know the truth, don't talk so casually. When the two Xianyi heard the conversation between the two of them, they wished they could cover their ears. They didn't want to hear the conversation at all. What was more shocking was that a lowly fairy would talk to the longevity Great Emperor like that. Ning Shu squinted. How would I know if you don't tell me? If you tell me, I'll know what you're thinking. Don't you want to have the peony fairy for yourself? Ning Shu rolled her eyes, quickly calculating the whole thing in her mind, analyzing all the possibilities. You imprisoned the peony fairy on purpose? Ning Shu could only come up with one conclusion. Either the longevity Great Emperor saw that the god realm was in chaos because of the peony fairy, so he put the peony fairy in the longevity hall. The others were afraid of the longevity Great Emperor, so they did not dare do anything. But the longevity Great Emperor also fell in love with the peony fairy. Ning Shu put his hands behind his back and pinched his fingers like a clairvoyant. In fact, he was filtering this matter out in his mind. The longevity Great Emperor coldly stared at Ning Shu. You're just a little fairy. There's a limit to meddling in other people's business. Go and receive your punishment. 10 bolts of lightning. A little fairy like her would be struck to death by 10 bolts of lightning. The longevity Great Emperor wanted to kill her. Ning Shu narrowed her eyes and smiled. Grand Emperor, you can't steal someone else's love. You can't read my mind, so how do you know that I won't fall in love with the peony fairy? Plus, I just received 3 heavenly thunders not long ago. If I get struck again, then I won't be able to keep my life. Please forgive me, Grand Emperor. There must be some inside story behind this matter that she did not know. She had to get to the bottom of it. The client was just a lowly little Xianni. She definitely didn't know what the inside story was. She also didn't know what the great emperors were planning. Ning Shu rolled up her sleeves and was ready to fight. Today, she had to fight with the longevity immortal emperor. Otherwise, the longevity immortal emperor would ask her to receive punishment and be struck by lightning. If he showed his strength, he wouldn't dare to treat her casually. Chapter 2384. Emperor Changxing was as cold as ice. Seeing Ning Shu like this, he frowned. You dare to disobey my order? Ning Shu curled his finger at Emperor Changxing. I don't dare to take another bolt of lightning. 10 bolts, I'll die. Most importantly, the lightning was too harmful to the soul. Ning Shu didn't want to torture his soul for no reason. Seeing Ning Shu's provocative finger, Emperor Changxing put on a fake smile. He wanted to laugh, but his face was twisted. His facial nerves were extremely uncoordinated. You may survive 10 heavenly thunders, but you will never survive if I attack you. We'll only know after we try, Ning Shu said with a smile. Then she crooked her finger at Longevity Emperor. Emperor! Mystic Fairy came over on her cloud. She said to Emperor Changxing, Emperor Changxing, Emperor Zui sent someone to invite you to the Ziwei Palace. He said he has something to discuss with you. Emperor Changxing glanced at Ning Shu and nodded. He waved his sleeve and said to the 2 trembling fairies, If this person enters the palace, I'll kill you. Yes. The 2 fairies glanced at Ning Shu. They only hoped that he would be smart and not drag them down with him. Emperor Changxing flew away on his cloud and disappeared in an instant. Ning Shu was a bit disappointed. He thought he could fight Emperor Changxing. Zhenxiang, did you leave your brain in the ground when you transformed? Mystic Fairy looked at Ning Shu with hostility. Do you want to drag all the sisters in the palace down with you? What do you want? I just want to see the Peony Fairy, Ning Shu said pitifully. Why do you want to see her? Why do you care if she lives or dies? Mystic Fairy said directly. Why do you have to go against Emperor Changxing for her? Do you think you can get away with it if Emperor Changxing gets angry? Ning Shu, that this made her and the Peony Fairy look like a pair of ill-fated mandarin ducks. She couldn't bear to look at it. For the time being, he would not go in. When the time came, he would sneak in. Ning Shu said, Then I won't go in. As the steward of the Palace of Immortal Life, Mystic Fairy was very wary and displeased of Ning Shu, who was like a bomb that could kill everyone at any time. The Great Emperor wants you to receive 10 bolts of heavenly lightning. Mystic Fairy said. Ning Shu turned around and smiled at the Mystic Fairy, which made her a little uncomfortable. I don't intend to accept my punishment. Even if the Great Emperor is here, I won't accept my punishment. 10 bolts of heaven's thunder may destroy my soul. Sister Mystic Fairy, do you want me to die? Where there were people, there would be disputes and fights, even if they were immortals. I didn't ask you to die. You did something wrong. Besides, it was Emperor Changxing who punished you. What do you mean by asking you to die? It has nothing to do with me whether you accept your punishment or not. Mystic Fairy turned around and flew away on the auspicious cloud. The 2 fairies looked at Ning Shu warily. I won't let you in. Ning Shu shrugged and turned to leave. When she returned to the West Hall, Mystic Fairy gave her another task, which was to pick the peach of immortality. She gave her a beautiful basket. Ning Shu knew that Mystic Fairy wanted to send her away and not let her find the Peony Fairy. Ning Shu didn't say anything. She took the basket and left the Palace of Immortal Life. There were many female immortals outside the Palace of Immortal Life. They wandered around and looked like they wouldn't give up until they caught the Peony Fairy. It was as if they hated the Peony Fairy for 10 lifetimes. The moment Ning Shu left the Palace of Immortal Life, she felt many gazes on her. Some people even followed her. Ning Shu didn't care. She carried the basket to the Peach of Immortality garden. The Peach of Immortality was growing very well. It was big and one would be full after eating one. It was filled with sweetness. Ning Shu was picking the peaches when she felt someone approaching. She stopped. You are Xian Yi from the Palace of Immortal Life? A cold female voice rang out. Ning Shu turned and saw a beautiful fairy. However, this fairy looked very arrogant and she was surrounded by a few other fairies. She gave off the feeling of a big sister. Ning Shu nodded. I am from the Palace of Immortal Life. Then do you know where the Peony Fairy is in the Palace of Immortal Life? The female immortal asked. Did they want to snatch it by force? If they really had the strength, they wouldn't have lingered outside for so long and didn't dare to offend Emperor Chongqing. I know, but Emperor Chongqing said that no one is allowed to enter. Ning Shu said helplessly. She was really speechless. She was basically following the plot now. So these people still found her. It felt like she was destined to give Peony the final blow. As expected, that vixen has already charmed Emperor Chongqing. She wants Emperor Chongqing to protect her. How shameless! The other female immortals said with a sinister expression. Jealousy made people ugly. They were all little fairies. Why were they so ugly? Get the Peony Fairy out and I will give you benefits. The leading female immortal said arrogantly to Ning Shu. Ning Shu shook his head like a rattledrum and said timidly, Emperor Chongqing will kill me. Don't be afraid. Don't tell me you want to see Emperor Chongqing protect that shameless vixen? The female immortal frowned and looked at the timid Ning Shu with disdain. If the client heard such words, he would be filled with jealousy. He helped Peony get out of the Palace of Immortal Life. Who knew how the client opened the enchantment? The power of love was just that great. This. Ning Shu's expression was very hesitant. He was scared and tempted. But he still refused. Forget it. Emperor Chongqing will kill me. And there is an enchantment. I can't open it. Ning Shu shrugged helplessly. The leading female immortal gave Ning Shu a bottle and said, This is dirty demonic liquid. It can pollute the enchantment and break it. Okay, so that's what it was. Ning Shu took the bottle. Let me think about it. What's there to think about? Just do it. Otherwise, I will kill you. Ning Shu shrunk his neck. We are all fairies. How can we fight and disturb world peace? Ning Shu picked a basket of immortal peaches and returned to the Palace of Immortal Life. Ning Shu gave the peaches to Xian Nu and asked, Sister Xian Nu, is Emperor Chongqing back? Just give up. Mystic Fairy took the basket and turned to leave. Ning Shu touched the bottle. He didn't go find Peony Fairy for now. He returned to his room and began to cultivate. A few fairies slept on a bunk. When they saw Ning Shu come, they ignored Ning Shu. Then they began to mock Ning Shu for being disgusting. Not only did he like women, but he also liked women like Peony. Ning Shu suddenly realized that he had become the same as Peony Fairy. He had become an existence that others couldn't wait to avoid. Chapter 2385. Ning Shu didn't care at all. Emperor Ziwei said something to Emperor Chongqing, but he didn't come back. Ning Shu sneaked into the East Palace. He set up a water enchantment barrier around himself and swaggered into the East Palace. Ning Shu felt a repulsive force from the enchantment barrier. This was the enchantment barrier set up by Emperor Chongqing. Ning Shu took out a bottle and poured a drop of black liquid onto the enchantment barrier. The black, filthy demonic liquid sizzled like sulfuric acid and corroded a hole in the enchantment barrier. The liquid dripped onto the ground and turned the ground black. Ning Shu crawled into the hole and knocked on the door. The Peony Fairy asked, Who is it? It's me. The Peony Fairy opened the door and was very happy to see Ning Shu. Why you here? Ning Shu got right to the point. It's not safe for you to stay here. Why? Emperor Chongqing said he would protect me, the Peony Fairy asked. Ning Shu told the Peony Fairy that the fairies were looking for her. They have found me. Besides me, they may find other fairies. At that time, you will be in danger. The Peony Fairy wore a sad expression. Even so, she was still very beautiful. Her melancholy appearance was very charming. Then what should I do? The Peony Fairy asked with a sigh. She looked at Ning Shu with clear eyes. Ning Shu, you might as well run first, Ning Shu said. The Peony Fairy, but where should I go? The fairies here don't like me. Ning Shu, Go to the mortal world. Ning Shu didn't dare to attack the Peony Fairy. He lured the lightning to the Peony Fairy and returned it not long after. This was a precious egg. He couldn't touch it. Go to the mortal world? The Peony Fairy frowned and hesitated. But I'm not familiar with the mortal world at all. Ning Shu was just about to speak when he suddenly felt a powerful pressure pressing down on him. Moreover, there was more than one. Ning Shu looked up and saw Immortal Emperor and the other 3 emperors standing on clouds, looking down at Ning Shu and the Peony Fairy. One of the white-bearded old men was the great emperor of the East. He stroked his white beard and said, "So this is little Peony." His tone was rather melancholic. "You're courting death." The longevity Immortal Emperor's face was extremely cold as he spat. Ning Shu shrugged. "What can I do? I can't just watch the person I love die." Ning Shu spoke as if he was telling the truth. Emperor Ziwei was a very scholarly emperor, and he furrowed his brows upon seeing this. "I didn't divinate for this weed." Emperor Qin Hua praised Ning Shu. "Do you know something, Xianyi?" "Ning Shu? I don't know." However, Ning Shu wore an unfathomable expression, as if he really did know something. The Peony Fairy hid behind Ning Shu and felt that the atmosphere wasn't quite right. She tugged on Ning Shu's sleeve and whispered, "What do we do now?" "Piss off." The longevity Immortal Emperor seemed to have lost his patience. He was filled with murderous intent towards Ning Shu, a lowly immortal who had offended him. "Ning Shu, why do we have to kill the Peony Fairy?" The scholarly Emperor Ziwei countered with a question of his own. "Who told you we have to kill her? Because you're afraid of her?" Ning Shu suddenly understood, as if a ray of light had illuminated her heart. He suddenly understood. These people were all gods, so they had to have predicted or sensed that the Peony Fairy had come with a mission from the heavenly Tao. Perhaps the Peony Fairy herself didn't understand this. Wasn't there a saying that when the world fell into chaos, all demons and devils would appear? When abnormal phenomena appeared in the heavens, there were bound to be demons and devils. When abnormal things happened, there was bound to be demons and devils. Ning Shu looked at Emperor Changxing with a hint of a smile. Emperor Changxing was probably imprisoned to kill the Peony Fairy, but in the end he went crazy for love. Surprise, surprise, surprise. You all know how to have fun. Emperor Changxing reached out, and a huge palm pressed down on Ning Shu. A surging golden dragon roared silently and rushed out of Ning Shu's body, passing through the huge palm and dissipating the power of the palm. Emperor Changxing narrowed his eyes. "I underestimated you. You and I have karma, but now you're going to stand on the opposite side of me." Ning Shu smiled. "No matter how much karma there is, it's all been repaid." Her survival was entirely due to the calculations of the heavenly axiom. It was only through the mouth of the Eternal Emperor that the person who entrusted her fell in love with the Eternal Emperor. Out of jealousy, he became the person who pushed the Peony Fairy to leave the divine realm and enter the demonic realm. But what was going on now? Why was she protecting the Peony Fairy? There was something wrong with the plot, but Ning Shu still had to send the Peony Fairy away. The war between the divine realm and the demon realm was entirely due to the self-healing of the heavenly Tao plane. When it came to eradicating a race or country, war was the best way. Ning Shu wanted to laugh. This was the mission of this grass. The white-bearded Emperor Dong Do stroked his beard and said, "There are some things that a little fairy like you doesn't know. Now get out of the way, or your 100 years of cultivation will turn to ashes." The Peony Fairy was a little scared now. Ning Shu asked in horror, "Why? You don't know?" It was really because of the low status of the person who commissioned her that Ning Shu could only speculate about a lot of things. As for the specifics, Ning Shu still didn't know. Perhaps these 4 big shots knew that the Peony Fairy would make the divine realm and the demon realm fight, so they imprisoned the Peony Fairy and didn't dare to kill her, fearing that the heavenly Tao would kill her. If the heavenly Tao wanted to kill her, even the gods couldn't resist it. It was better to just keep her locked up like this. The person who imprisoned her fell in love with the person who was imprisoned. Ning Shu pieced together the general situation from the fragments he knew. Did this count as killing them with love? "Everyone, you should think about how to avoid death. The will of the heavens cannot be defied. Ning Shu wagged his index finger. Emperor Qinghua was a little impatient. Didn't I tell you to just end everything? This wouldn't have happened. Emperor Changsheng looked at Ning Shu. You're a lot smarter than I thought. You're most likely not a little fairy, are you? Ning Shu replied, I'm a red weed. You can take a look if you don't believe me. Seeing the peony fairy hiding behind Ning Shu, Emperor Changsheng's eyes darkened. Darkness brewed in his eyes. Ning Shu met Emperor Changsheng's eyes. Emperor Changsheng was most likely both in love and in fear of the peony fairy. Sometimes, being too beautiful was a sin. Ning Shu heaved a sigh of relief and cracked his neck. You're not going to gang up on me, are you? That's not going to sound good. It's going to damage the reputation of your emperors. Emperor Qinghua immediately retorted, What does this have to do with you? Why are you jumping up and down like this? We're doing this for the safety of the divine realm. Ning Shu came to a sudden realization. So you're saying that you're imprisoning the peony fairy to protect the stability of the divine realm. Chapter 2386. Ning Shu finally figured out the ins and outs of this matter. These big shots must have vaguely sensed or calculated that there would be a god in the divine realm who would start a war between gods and demons, so they targeted the peony fairy. They didn't care as long as the peony fairy didn't leave the divine realm. However, they didn't expect the peony fairy to be so charming that the whole divine realm was in a mess. Some gods were obsessed with the peony fairy. Some female immortals seemed to have lost their minds, so the immortal emperor kept the peony fairy in the immortal palace as a prisoner. He didn't let her go out. However, he didn't expect that a group of jealous female immortals actually took the peony fairy away. The peony fairy fell into the demon realm and set off a storm in the demon realm. However, the immortal emperor who imprisoned the peony fairy also fell in love with the peony fairy. Everything was put together in a straight line, and everything was crystal clear. On the surface, those female immortals were jealous of the peony fairy and didn't want the peony fairy to hook up with their favorite gods in the divine realm. The immortal emperor let these female immortals take the peony fairy away. On the surface, the immortal emperor protected the peony fairy and didn't let others get close to her. To put it bluntly, he was imprisoning her. The powerful gods could sense this disaster and were thinking of ways to avoid the gods' killing intent. Now Ning Shu had to face the strongest and most powerful people in the divine realm. Ning Shu glanced at the pitiful peony fairy standing behind and felt helpless. Even if she died, the peony fairy wouldn't die. Even if she was injured, her life would not be in danger. Green E, what should we do now? The peony fairy exhaled. Ning Shu asked. Because they were close, Ning Shu could smell her fragrance. Ning Shu asked the peony fairy, What do you want to do? I don't know. The peony fairy looked at the 4 great emperors standing on the auspicious clouds and said blankly, They won't harm me. Yes, we won't hurt little peony. Dong Do Grand Emperor stroked his white beard and smiled. He looked like a kind old man. As long as little peony stays in the god realm, you can have anything you want. Heavenly treasures, spirit stones, or all kinds of good things. The great emperor of the east was like a strange uncle who was trying to coax a little lowly. Ning Shu snorted and said, Not all girls like money. There are also some kind girls who like cute little animals such as Land Rovers, BMWs, Jaguars, Hummers, Bugatti Veyron, and Lynx. There will be all of these. Great Emperor Dong Do said. Emperor Qinghua was getting a little impatient. What the hell? Is there a need to make such a difficult decision? Emperor Ziwei replied in a scholarly voice. Even if there aren't any peonies, there are still other lotus flowers and chrysanthemums. This mission of provoking the war between gods and demons could be given to the peony fairy, or it could be given to someone else. Once something happened to the peony fairy, the will of heaven would choose another suitable candidate. This was a calamity. Ning Shu turned to Emperor Ziwei and asked, I heard you have an outer heaven stone, is that true? That's right. Emperor Ziwei nodded. I do. Then I'll give the peony fairy to you in exchange for the outer heaven stone, Ning Shu said. The peony fairy stared blankly at Ning Shu before tugging on Ning Shu's sleeve with a pitiable expression. Are you going to exchange me for something? Ning Shu. Don't worry, you'll be fine. He was going to exchange her for something before leaving with the peony fairy. Emperor Qinghua looked at Ning Shu with a disdainful expression. You're very close to the peony fairy, so you're only doing this because you want to use her as a bargaining chip to exchange for the outer heaven stone, you despicable man. Ning Shu puffed out his chest. I am a despicable man, so I'll take the peony fairy with me. Ning Shu repressed the urge to beat the peony fairy into a pulp. Go with Emperor Ziwei, I'll come find you later. The peony fairy bit down on her lips. Do you really like this outer heaven stone that much? That's right, I like it very much. Ning Shu nodded without hesitation. The peony fairy thought for a moment before replying, Then I'll go with Emperor Ziwei, you have to remember to come find me. All right, I'll be sure to come find you. Ning Shu replied with a smile. Did this count as selling the peony fairy? She was counting the money for him. Everyone. Emperor Qinghua clicked his tongue before turning to Ning Shu. Are you ashamed? What's there to be ashamed of? Ning Shu countered with a question of his own. Emperor Qinghua. You're so shameless even though you're such a lowly being. Ning Shu tugged on the peony fairy's arm before turning to Emperor Ziwei. How about you give me the outer heaven stone? Emperor Ziwei was extremely calm. Even in the face of Ning Shu's blatant disrespect, he still replied in a calm and collected manner, I can give you the outer heaven stone, and I can even give you a little more, but the price is that you have to stay out of this. What a difficult choice. I have to think about it. Impudent. Emperor Changsheng spoke in a cold voice as a magic tool appeared in his hand. This magic tool was constructed from countless thin needles, which rained down like a torrential rain of needles. Many vines extended from Ning Shu's hand, and these vines stacked on top of one another to form a round ball, which enshrouded Ning Shu and the peony fairy within, keeping these thin needles at bay. Ning Shu taunted, Needles? You're not invincible, East, are you? The peony fairy's expression was one of shock and horror. Let's not fight anymore. Otherwise, I'll just go with them. Ning Shu, even if you want to go with them, you have to at least get something in return. The outer heaven stone is extremely powerful. The peony fairy didn't care about any of this. She didn't care about magic tools or power, and she didn't want to get anything in return. She was like a piece of floating duckweed, drifting with the wind. Her fate had already been decided. This was actually very satisfying. The peony fairy spoke with a forlorn expression, Let's not fight anymore. You won't be able to beat 4 emperors. It doesn't matter where I go as long as I don't encounter any female immortals. If you like rocks, I can collect them for you in the future. Ning Shu almost blurted out, Who wants your stinky things? I don't need your charity. However, he managed to repress his urge. He bit down on the tip of his tongue, and he took a deep breath before replying, I like them very much. The more the merrier. Wait, I'll go with you, the peony fairy said to the 4 emperors. Ning Shu withdrew his vines, and the peony fairy turned to Emperor Ziwei with a pair of clear eyes. Can you give that rock some green light? All right. Emperor Ziwei produced a dazzling rock that was shimmering with starlight. The rock floated toward Ning Shu before making a sharp turn and landing in Emperor Qinghua's hand. Chapter 2387. Ning Shu looked on expressionlessly as Emperor Qinghua snatched the star stone from him. Ning Shu was so angry that he wanted to beat him up. Emperor Qinghua turned to the peony fairy and said, Little peony, stay away from people like him. He's only approaching you to satisfy his own selfish desires. The 4 emperors had very complex feelings toward the peony fairy. There was a mix of wariness, but there was also a hint of doting, as if they were worshipping her. The peony fairy said, Emperor Qinghua, please give the stone to Lu. Why are you so stupid? Emperor Qinghua shook his head with a resigned expression. She's trying to trick you. You better give it to me. You make it sound like I'm despicable just because I'm trying to steal something from you. Ning Shu extended a hand and looked at Emperor Qinghua expressionlessly. As for whether I'm lying or not, That's up to the Peony Fairy herself. The Peony Fairy nodded. Take this stone as a token of my gratitude to Lu. Lu Yi has been very nice to me. All the other female immortals hate me, but she's been very nice to me. Ning Shu. I actually hate you too. This was an involuntary feeling. Emperor Qinghua's expression darkened as he looked at Ning Shu with a stern expression. You're just a lowly fairy, how dare you speak to me like that? Ning Shu cocked his head to the side. Who knows if there will be any more emperors in the future? What gave you the confidence to provoke us 4 great emperors so confidently? Emperor Qinghua was truly enraged. He felt like he was an ant trying to intimidate him. If he didn't satisfy her, then he would crush her to death. Otherwise, if everyone dared to strut around in front of him, what dignity would he have left as an emperor? Ning Shu's expression darkened even further at the sight of Emperor Qinghua stowing away the stone. The Peony Fairy furrowed her brows with a depressed expression. Lu Yi, do you want me to get another one for you? Ning Shu grabbed the Peony Fairy's wrist and stepped on the auspicious cloud. He slowly floated up and looked at the 4 great emperors face to face. The outer sky stone belongs to me now. Now, give it to me. Emperor Qinghua sneered coldly. What if I refuse? The other 3 emperors looked on in silence. Now that Emperor Qinghua had stepped in, all they had to do was watch. Ning Shu pinched her fingers and stretched out her vines to tie the Peony Fairy to her back. She didn't want the Peony Fairy to be taken away by someone else in the middle of the fight. According to the Peony Fairy's character of believing everyone's words, she wouldn't ask for the Star Stone after being fooled by others. Ning Shu was now very obsessed with the stone. The Peony Fairy was lying on Ning Shu's back in a daze. Emperor Qinghua was about to explode with rage. This was a blatant insult. This was a blatant provocation. It looked like he didn't take him seriously at all. Ning Shu extended a vine that was as thick as a fist toward Emperor Qinghua. A cold sneer appeared on Emperor Qinghua's face as lightning erupted from his body. The lightning struck the vines, reducing them to ashes in an instant. Emperor Qinghua's attribute was lightning, which was the bane of plants like her and other creatures. When she was a human, she had cultivated peerless martial arts and was barely able to absorb the power of lightning. However, as a fairy whose roots were plants, the power of lightning was not something her body could withstand or absorb. Even if she could absorb it, the power of lightning would destroy her body. The Peony Fairy was a little scared of lightning. This reminded her of the excruciating pain from being struck by lightning during her human form. She turned to Ning Shu. Stop fighting. How about I ask Emperor Qinghua for the stone? There's no need for that. I won't give it to you without a fight. There were still 3 emperors present, so it would be easier for them to negotiate after a fight. A huge golden dragon appeared on Ning Shu's back. The dragon was extremely lifelike, and there was a faint spiritual light in its eyes as it charged toward Emperor Qinghua. Emperor Qinghua narrowed his eyes and extended a hand. A net of lightning enveloped the dragon. The net of lightning tightened as the golden dragon struggled to break free. Flashing lightning coursed through every inch of the dragon's body, but it didn't feel any pain. Instead, its body swelled larger and larger, as if it was about to break free from the net of lightning. Emperor Qinghua gripped the air, and the lightning on the net of lightning became even more powerful. Bolts of thick lightning struck the dragon's body as they drew closer and closer. Ning Shu pointed a finger, and the dragon within the net of lightning collapsed before materializing into a new dragon, which charged toward Emperor Qinghua in the blink of an eye. The dragon crashed viciously into Emperor Qinghua's body, forcing him to stumble back a couple of steps with a dark expression. An even more powerful bolt of lightning erupted from his body, and the entire divine realm could hear the rumbling of thunder. It was as if divine might had descended, and all of the male and female immortals were feeling quite uneasy. What was going on? The Peony Fairy was lying on Ning Shu's back, and her body was trembling with fear. She couldn't say anything as the 2 of them weren't going to listen to her anyway. The gigantic bolt of lightning seemed to have split the world in half before crashing into the dragon's body. The dragon was sliced in half, but it quickly materialized again. As long as there was enough spiritual energy, it could materialize into a dragon. Furthermore, dragons didn't know the concept of fatigue or pain. The dragon charged toward Emperor Qinghua before using its body to wrap around him. Emperor Qinghua's entire body was crackling with lightning, and the feedback power from the lightning was a little too much for Ning Shu to handle. However, it appeared that Emperor Qinghua was at a disadvantage. Ning Shu turned to Emperor Qinghua and said, "You're actually quite stupid. No one else has made a move yet you've made a move. Aren't you afraid of being punished by the heavens if you injure the peony fairy?" Everyone else was just spectating, and Emperor Qinghua was the only one who was eager to teach her a lesson. "Give it to me." Ning Shu grabbed onto Emperor Qinghua's entangled body. Emperor Qinghua chuckled coldly as his body transformed into a streak of light and escaped from the dragon's entanglement. He stood on the other side with a face full of rage and embarrassment. He most likely didn't think that he would be beaten so badly by the lowly Xian. Furthermore, there were 3 emperors watching from the sidelines. Where was he supposed to show his face in the future? Ning Shu extended a hand. "Give me the stone." "What if I don't give it to you?" Emperor Qinghua couldn't find a way out of this embarrassing situation, so he decided to fight Ning Shu to the bitter end. "Ning Shu, then I'll elope with Fairy Peony." Emperor Qinghua looked at Ning Shu with disgust as if he were looking at a heinous criminal. "You really are a selfish, greedy woman." Ning Shu nodded. "Yes, that's the kind of person I am. It's as if you guys aren't selfish." Chapter 2388. Do you know that Celestial Peony Fairy has left the divine realm and descended into the mortal world? The entire world will be plunged into chaos, Emperor Qinghua said in a cold voice. Even gods were unable to resist Celestial Peony Fairy's charms, let alone ordinary mortals. The entire world would be plunged into chaos as they fought over her. Ning Shu understood what Emperor Qinghua was trying to say. The heavenly Tao wouldn't harm ordinary mortals. Even if Celestial Peony Fairy were to fall, she would fall into the demon realm. Even if something were to happen along the way, she would still be saved in the end. Ning Shu spoke with a disdainful expression. "You're using the entire world as a chess piece, and now you're worrying about the entire world? Can you be any more pretentious? Countless people had died in this game of chess, yet you're worrying about the entire world? Do you think you're the one who's going to make the best of everything?" "Ignorant fool," Emperor Qinghua said with an ashen expression. Ning Shu splayed his hands open. "I don't know anything about the entire world. All I know is that you're taking something that belongs to me, and it was given to me by Celestial Peony Fairy. What reason do you have to take something that belongs to me?" At this moment, Emperor Ziwei spoke up first. "It's understandable that you don't know some things. How about this? I'll give you a stone, but you won't get involved in this anymore." Ning Shu extended a hand. "Let me see what you have first." "I heard you want a magic tool." "I've already refined one." Emperor Ziwei brought out a red ribbon with a small bell attached to each end. This magic tool was quite beautiful, and it was especially suitable for female immortals. Ning Shu said, "I only want the stone, not the magic tool." Emperor Ziwei continued, "All right, I'll give you the stone, but you have to swear an oath to the heavenly Tao that you won't get involved in this anymore. Otherwise, you'll suffer divine retribution." Ning Shu, "Give me the stone, and I'll swear an oath." Emperor Ziwei turned to Emperor Qinghua, who reluctantly tossed the stone to Ning Shu. Ning Shu quickly reached out and took the stone. It was a star stone. Ning Shu quickly put it away. "Then swear it." Emperor Qinghua glared at Ning Shu with an unfriendly expression. All the other emperors were also staring at Ning Shu. Ning Shu coughed, raised his hand, and swore to the heavens, "From now on, I will not participate in this matter. If I violate it, the heavens will punish me." "That should be fine." The great emperor of Dongdo frowned. "Swear it again." "Swear again? Then give me another stone. If I swear again, I'll be cursing myself again. How can I swear so casually?" Ning Shu retorted. Emperor Qinghua was as enraged as a toad. "I really want to fucking kill you. I've never seen such a greedy Xian. Fuck, There's a gender difference between greed and greed. A woman who takes the initiative to fight for what belongs to her is a slut, while a man who takes the initiative to fight for what belongs to him is a sign of ambition and ambition. Why don't you say something like that? I am that greedy, what are you going to do about it? Ning Shu raised his chin and looked at the silent and aloof Emperor Changsheng. He really did want to fight Emperor Changsheng, but Emperor Qinghua was the first to step forward. In reality, she had been provoking Emperor Changsheng this entire time, but Emperor Changsheng had always maintained a cold expression. A dog that bites doesn't bark, and a dog that barks doesn't bite. He had to pay more attention to Emperor Changsheng in the future. Ning Shu smelled the fragrance that had been lingering at the tip of his nose. Did Emperor Changsheng have feelings for Fairy Peony now? He wasn't going to accept missions like this again. The most uncontrollable thing in this world was the human heart, and the most unbearable thing was love. Here's another stone. Swear it again. Emperor Zhui tossed another stone to Ning Shu. Ning Shu hurriedly caught it and almost put it in his mouth. I swear it with your name as well as a specific punishment, such as dying a horrible death, never to be reincarnated, Emperor Zhui said in a scholarly voice. That vicious. Ning Shu stowed the stone away. I can't bear to curse myself like that. Emperor Changsheng looked at Ning Shu. Even if you're arrogant, there's still a limit. Do you really think you can traverse the entire divine realm with your mediocre skills? Even if I can't, it's still very easy for me to take care of Emperor Qinghua. Ning Shu spoke with a smile. Emperor Qinghua harumphed coldly with a dark expression. Emperor Dongdo had been spectating this entire time, and he turned to Fairy Peony. Little Peony, do you want to go to the human world with your accompanying weed? If you want to go to the human world, then I'll take you to the human world. You'll see the sceneries of the human world, eat the delicacies of the human world, and see how mortals live. Emperor Dongdo's appearance was very deceiving. He was a benevolent old man, and no one seemed to be able to refuse the request of a benevolent old man. The Fairy Peony was a little hesitant. Ning Shu released her. All right, I'll take you to the human world. Emperor Dongdo is an old man, so I'm sure he won't drool at the sight of you like all the other male idols. Emperor Dongdo. The Fairy Peony stood rooted to the spot with a blank expression. Emperor Changsheng turned to the Fairy Peony. Come here. Don't be fooled by his flowery words. Ning Shu grabbed onto the Fairy Peony's hand. Don't go over there. This emperor is actually just like all the other male idols. He has all kinds of feelings for you, but he puts on a cold and aloof facade. On the other hand, his heart is as hot as a volcano. The Fairy Peony stood still and allowed Ning Shu to hold onto her hand obediently. Emperor Changsheng's face turned even colder. His whole body was releasing cold air. He looked at Ning Shu with a very sharp gaze. Ning Shu laughed. He pulled the Fairy Peony's hand and started running. What's the point of being a servant in the immortal realm? It's better to go to the human world. There are many places in the human world. Come with me. How dare you? A huge hand reached for the Fairy Peony. It wanted to take her away. Ning Shu pulled the Fairy Peony back. His spirit chi formed a huge sword. Ning Shu swung the sword and cut the hand in half. Then he pulled the Fairy Peony and ran. At the end of the immortal realm, they reached the immortals' viewing platform. If they fell from the immortals' viewing platform, they would be in the human world. They would never be able to return to the immortal realm. Below the immortals' viewing platform was an endless cloud. Those who were afraid of heights would feel their legs go soft. Ning Shu and the Fairy Peony were forced to the edge of a cliff. The Fairy Peony held onto Ning Shu tightly. She was confused. Why do we have to fight? If you go back, you'll be imprisoned. They might even do bad things to you. Ning Shu could only say so. The Fairy Peony smiled brightly. Petals fell around her. Flowers bloomed all around her. Even on the edge of a cliff, it was beautiful. Chapter 2389. I'll go wherever you go. The female immortals here don't like me, the Peony Fairy said. Ning Shu. No woman will like you no matter where you go. Beauty was a weapon. Ning Shu had seen it for himself. When beauty was a weapon, not many people could resist it. But the key was that not many people could have such extreme beauty. Ning Shu felt that the heavenly Tao had taken the peony fairy's feelings. Otherwise, she wouldn't feel anything when so many people adored her, nor would she like anyone. The four great emperors chased after them. When they saw Ning Shu and the peony fairy standing on the edge of the cliff, their expressions changed. The great emperor of Dongdo became more and more amiable. He said to the peony fairy, "Little peony, come here. Don't be crazy with this man. You know, if you jump from here, you'll no longer be an immortal. You'll become an ordinary mortal without the power to protect yourself. Those mortals will covet your beauty and hurt you. In the heavenly realm, no one will hurt you." Then the peony fairy hesitated again. To be exact, the peony fairy herself was not an opinionated person. Anyway, whatever the heavenly Tao said was right. Otherwise, she would have been swallowed up by others. Some women would be jealous, but more men would protect her. "Greenie, what do you think?" The peony fairy turned to Ning Shu and asked. "Ning Shu, just do what you think. I don't have the heart to cheat you." "Then I'll go with you. How about we stop being immortals?" the peony fairy asked. Ning Shu, He was speechless. "Little peony, when you two jump from here, you'll no longer be immortals. You'll have no power. This green you trust won't have the power to protect you. What's wrong with being in the heavenly realm?" The great emperor of Dongdo said, "No one will do anything to you too." In fact, the great emperor of Dongdo's words made sense. In the heavenly realm, the peony fairy was loved by all the male immortals and envied by all the female immortals. But when she came to the human world, she would definitely have to live a very bitter life. With such an appearance, she was destined to not be ordinary, but she went directly to the devil world. Moreover, the devil realm was also living very comfortably. Although the devil realm was poor in resources, the devil master would give whatever he wanted. If he was homesick, he would attack the heavenly realm and let him go home. Moreover, he would show the heavenly realm his ownership. He felt that the devil lord was the true love of the peony fairy. The male gods and great emperors of the god realm were all like fleeting clouds. "Then are we in the god world?" Ning Shu asked. "Ning Shu, do you have any ideas of your own?" He felt that it didn't matter where the peony fairy was. She had no desires. Her lack of desire made her even more mesmerizing. He placed the things in front of her and coaxed her. The four great emperors didn't dare to act rashly. No matter what, they had to keep the peony fairy in the god realm. They had to keep her under their nose and not let her go out of control. Ning Shu said to the peony fairy, "You stay in the god realm. I'm going to jump down. If I stay in the god realm, the four great emperors won't let me go. I can't live in the god realm." Ning Shu was itching to jump off the immortals' viewing platform. The peony fairy immediately said, "Then I'll jump with you." "Ning Shu, you really want to die with me?" "Everyone," the North Pole Emperor said elegantly, "you stay in the god realm too. Today's matter is over. We won't pursue it. The peony fairy can't leave the god realm. Otherwise, wherever she goes, there will be war." Ning Shu's eyes turned. "Peony, you stay here. I don't want to be a fairy in the god realm. It's too hard. I want to go to the human world." Emperor Changsheng's expression was very cold. Emperor Ziwei immediately said, "With your power, you don't need to be a fairy anymore. When the time comes, you can become a goddess and stay in the god realm with the peony fairy." Ning Shu felt like the four great emperors were truly being wronged. They had to compromise and indulge her for the sake of the stability of the god realm. Now that they had tricked the peony fairy into staying, she was definitely going to die a very painful death. Ning Shu and the others grinned and jumped off the immortals' viewing platform with the peony fairy in their arms. "Come and catch me." The four great emperors' expressions shifted, and they hurriedly rushed to the edge of the cliff. However, they could no longer see the two of them. All they could see was a vast expanse of white mist. Emperor Qinghua's expression was extremely dark. "How dare she, a lowly weed? What did you do to the maid in your palace? Why is she so distrustful of us? Emperor Ziwei's brows furrowed as he pulled out his divination book. In the end, he shook his head. Tribulation is upon us. Emperor Changsheng's expression was as cold as ice. She's still holding a grudge against us for the 3 bolts of divine lightning. The most important thing now is to find the Peony Fairy and bring her back as soon as possible. Emperor Dongdo stroked his beard and said, "We also have to make preparations to protect ourselves during this tribulation." Emperor Qinghua was extremely irritated. "So what if we find her? Bring her back to the God realm and worship her. Why can't we just kill her? I really don't understand what's going on with the will of the heavens." Emperor Dongdo only replied, "Nothing lasts forever. The God realm has already reached the point of extinction. So that's the will of the heavens." Emperor Dongdo heaved a forlorn sigh. "Kill the Peony Fairy," Emperor Qinghua said with irritation. Emperor Qinghua grumbled in a fit of rage. He had been defeated by the lowly Xianyi and had lost all of his dignity, so why would he care about Fairy Peony? "We can't." Emperor Changsheng shook his head. "So what if I did? Even if the heavenly Tao is going to give birth to a new heavenly mandate, it'll still take some time. Isn't it better to buy some time? It's just like Xianyi said, you also?" Emperor Qinghua wanted to lash out at everyone he saw. Emperor Changsheng. "I like her, but I don't want her to have anything to do with this. The Peony Fairy concerns the safety of the divine realm. Is this really the time to be discussing this?" Emperor Changsheng glared coldly at Emperor Qinghua. The small boat of friendship was about to capsize. Good friends were about to end their friendship. The 4 emperors decided to find the Peony Fairy through a special channel. Emperor Qinghua insisted on killing the Peony Fairy. Even if the Peony Fairy were to remain in the God realm, she would still cause unrest in the God realm. Not only did he want to kill the Peony Fairy, but he also wanted to tear that lowly weed into pieces, extract her spirit, and whip her for eternity. Only by destroying her spirit and making her unable to reincarnate could he vent the hatred in his heart. Everyone ignored Emperor Qinghua's incessant chatter. Emperor Ziwei divined the location where the 2 celestial maidens would appear in the human world. However, Emperor Ziwei was unable to see through the heavens, and he suffered a severe backlash as a result. Chapter 2390. Ning Shu jumped off the Immortal's viewing platform with the Peony Fairy in his arms. The wind whistled past the layers of clouds. He didn't know where they would land. The Peony Fairy was at a loss. Her hair was messed up by the wind. Being held by Ning Shu, she was only at a loss, not afraid. He didn't know how long it would take to fall to the mortal world, but Ning Shu felt that he had been in free fall for a long time. Taking the Peony Fairy away was to comply with the heavenly Tao, and to not give the immortal emperor a chance to interact with the Peony Fairy. He didn't want the immortal emperor to be infatuated with the Peony Fairy. He didn't know how the immortal emperor felt about the Peony Fairy, but if he had less time to interact with the Peony Fairy, he wouldn't be enveloped by the buff. The chances of falling in love with the Peony Fairy would be much lower. Ning Shu always felt that the heavenly Tao had calculated him. It was her. Ning Shu wasn't the client. The client was calculated by the heavenly Tao, and she was also calculated by the heavenly Tao. Fate was really a difficult thing to figure out. The falling speed was getting faster and faster. There were countless astral winds around. When they hit the body, it seemed that even the bones would be broken. This kind of astral wind should be able to kill a god. Even if the god didn't die, it would deprive the god of his power. Ning Shu pulled the Peony Fairy. The Peony Fairy's clothes had been cut open by the astral winds. The wounds were faintly stained with blood. Ning Shu hurriedly set up a barrier, but it was also broken by the astral winds. A huge astral wind came and directly swept the Peony Fairy away. Green. The Peony Fairy stretched out her hand and shouted to Ning Shu. Ning Shu was speechless. So the Peony Fairy was swept away and sent to the demon realm. Ning Shu just said, "You'll be fine." Really, Ning Shu didn't care about the Peony Fairy's safety at all. This guy was very lucky. Nothing would happen to him. He could live well wherever he went. The heavenly Tao wouldn't let him die before he completed his mission. The immortality buff was at the maximum. The peony fairy's figure flashed and was swept away by the astral wind, disappearing without a trace. The astral winds around him grew stronger and denser. Ning Shu's clothes were filled with cuts, and an inexplicable power was seeping into his body from the cuts, dissipating the power in his body. Moreover, the astral winds were still increasing in strength. It looked like they were about to kill Ning Shu. Ning Shu released the giant dragon and stood on its head. The giant dragon rushed down at an extremely fast speed. Ning Shu raised his middle finger at the heavenly Tao. Could it not burn the bridge a little more after crossing the river? Now that her mission had been accomplished, it was time for her to die. Even if he didn't die at the hands of the longevity immortal emperor, he should have died in the process of jumping onto the immortal's viewing platform. Ning Shu set up one barrier after another on his body, enveloping himself and the golden dragon. He didn't know how far the immortal's viewing platform was from the mortal realm. After falling for so long, they still hadn't reached it. Even a god would not be able to withstand it. Strong astral winds hit Ning Shu's body, especially when the astral winds cut through his skin. The astral winds would dissolve the power in his body. This kind of power would dissolve the power of a god, and from then on, he would become a powerless mortal. Not only that, but this kind of power would continue to wear down the power of a god, making him weaker and weaker. He would not even be able to compare to a mortal's body. In the end, he would die before reaching the age of a mortal. Ning Shu did not want his power to be worn down. After doing all this, if he did not have the power to protect himself, he would definitely be killed by the four emperors. Moreover, when the time came, he would be the driving force behind the gods and demons. When the entire god realm saw him, everyone would shout for him to be killed. The giant dragon's body was also cut by the astral winds. Once it touched the astral winds, it could not take back its spiritual energy. It was directly dissolved by the astral winds. Ning Shu was struck by a sense of foreboding. Even if he survived, he would not be able to cultivate again after his body was destroyed by the astral winds. He set up layers upon layers of vines, enchantments, and layers upon layers of turtle shells to protect himself. If he did not have any power, he could imagine the sinister smile on Emperor Qinghua's face as he pinched his fingers together in an attempt to kill him. He could live without anything, but he could not live without power. When the time came, he would pin all the crimes on her head, and she would become an existence that the entire god realm wanted to kill. As long as he had power, there was nothing to fear. Ning Shu cursed the heavenly Tao in his heart. It looked like if the heavenly Tao wanted to kill him, he would either tear him to shreds or die of exhaustion. Ning Shu was as scared as he was when he jumped down. It was a pity that none of the emperors had jumped down with him. He was the only one who had to bear the brunt of this destruction. No, there was still the peony fairy. Perhaps the peony fairy had also been corroded by the astral winds. Even if she had been corroded, she would not die before completing her mission. The demon master was trying to conquer the god realm, and he was most likely trying to save the peony fairy's life. The peony fairy had also been pushed off the immortals' viewing platform by the female immortals, and the same thing would happen again. Once the god realm and the demon realm began to fight, the peony fairy would be slowly corroded. Ning Shu massaged his own head. There were some things that the demon master did not know. Perhaps the peony fairy's life would also be slowly fading away while the god realm and the demon realm were in full swing. Ning Shu's mind was a complete mess. The astral winds were becoming more and more powerful. He just wanted to know when he would be able to land on the ground. Ning Shu flared up in his heart. Is there an end to this? Ning Shu froze the water into a thick layer of ice. What does letting an ant like me live have to do with you? In the eyes of the heavenly Tao, she was just an ant. Seeing as she was already a pawn, it was fine to abandon her. There was no need to take her life. The giant dragon under him accelerated its descent and finally broke through a barrier. It was as if they had entered another world. This world did not have as much spiritual energy as the god realm, nor did it have the fragrance of flowers and birds. Moreover, it was an ancient plain. The giant dragon carried Ning Shu and landed on a mountain range. The huge impact caused the whole mountain range to tremble. Ning Shu fanned the dust with his hand and coughed. He found himself standing in a big pit. His body was badly shaken and his internal organs were injured. Ning Shu spat out a mouthful of blood, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and took out a jade bottle. He poured out an immortal pill with golden pill patterns on its surface and a burst of pill fragrance. He could not feel it in the god realm, but when he took out the pill in the human world, the pill fragrance drifted far away. Ning Shu hurriedly stuffed the pill into his mouth, lest the fragrance of the pill attract any mountain spirits. Now he had to concentrate on dealing with the remaining power of the astral winds in his body. This kind of power was nibbling away the power in his body and weakening his body. He was afraid that the Peony Fairy's current situation was not very good. The pill turned into a force and integrated into his body. The wounds on his body healed at once. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.